give some tips and advice to someone's doing auction purchases. So I think everyone can see my screen.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So this one, I bought this property through modern method of auction, which um, I think probably I wouldn't suggest if you're buying through auction, because there's quite a high admin fee, £6,000 minimum, which is non-refundable. But in this case, when I looked at the numbers and the valuation, it made sense. So I thought, okay, let me try, let me see, and it will be a good challenge. So 3-bed in Stoke-on-Trent, it had structural issues, quite in bad state of repairs, and I've got some photographs. In fact, actually, if I just go through the photographs, as you can see, it has been empty for a number of years. That's why it was in auction. And then we did a complete back to bricks refurb. So complete fixing the structural work, which was a crack in the front. So we did, I think it was called strapping, and we had to go through replastering, rewiring, full central heating, and we then moved it. Now it looks like this. So a complete refurb, around I think £25,000 on a 3-bed property. Just going back to the numbers. So bought through auction, we managed to, so all in 69,000, the market valuation after 6 months. So this was a cash purchase. It wasn't a bridge finance. It was all my money. So all 69,000 of my cash, and we completed within 28 days. Got the refurb done, and then went to lender. I think I left within, I think it was under 6 months, and we've managed to find the lender, got it refinanced, and then it was a 2-year fixed. So I got it refinanced again, and then pulled all my money out, and there was a little bit of profit. So yeah, and it has been tenanted. So last 3 years, no issues. It was one of my first auction purchase. So yeah, that was just a very vanilla buy-to-let deal. Any questions from anyone?
Kash, I'm interested, and I'm going to sort of try to keep this thing going for most of the evening for the presentations here. If we go back to before you even looked at this deal, could you give a little bit of background to what you were looking for and what your strategy was? What was your rationale? We can see that you ended up with a buy-to-let in Stoke. Was Stoke your only area that you were looking in? What was your rationale for doing this?
Yeah, sure. So when I started in 2015, 2015, I had very little pot of money. The funding was quite little, and my idea has always been, and I think it's always going to be, is mainly cash flow. So I was after returns, less worried about the capital growth. So I looked at a number of locations in 2014, 2015. Obviously, I'm based in London, so that little pod wouldn't have gone really far in London. And I looked at a number of locations, and I was introduced to Stoke back in 2013, 2014. I thought it's two and a half hours from where I live in London. It's the numbers work. And then I started doing research, speaking to investors. I would say for first 6 months, I didn't buy anything. I was mainly visiting the area, speaking to estate agents, letting agents, investors, and I thought it will be a good start. And then since then, I've been buying there.
And how many have you bought in Stoke now?
So we've got 3 buy-to-lets and a couple of HMOs there.
Yeah. And do you have anything anywhere else, or is it all Stoke?
No, it's mainly in all my properties are in Stoke.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously you're probably in the time from deciding Stoke and buying this first one, or choosing to buy this first one, you probably saw quite a lot. So you've got to kiss a lot of frogs. What was the particular criteria that made you go for this one?
It was, I mean, based on my research, I could pull most of my money out.
Yeah.
The idea was that little pot that I started with, I wanted to recycle and keep on investing as much as I can. So I thought if I could actually go in and come out within 6 to 12 months, potentially I can build a portfolio. And that's what I have been doing since then, is recycling. It's getting tougher now, pulling all the money out. And I know there are some of the deals where bigger deals you can pull the money out, but it's the idea was to actually go in and come out. And also I think it was, to be honest, it was the risk of putting 70,000 in compared to putting 200, 300,000 in was slightly less.
Yeah. The admin fee for the auction looks quite high. Was that literally the amount you had to put down when the hammer fell? Is that what it was?
It's the modern method of auction, yeah. So they that's one of the things I'm not in favor of modern method of auction, is this admin fee, which is quite high. And it's the way it works is it's an online bidding. So there is a specific days and there's a end date to it, and people keep bidding. And I think at the end, mainly towards last, I think probably last few hours or last few minutes, that's where the activity goes up and people keep bidding. And if your bid is accepted, and they say it quite in advance that if your bid is accepted, there's a minimum, I think it's 3.5% plus VAT of the purchase price as admin fee, and minimum is £6,000. So it's not one of the, I would say, that has put me off a little bit. When I looked at last few modern method of auction, with £6,000 or whatever admin fee they are charging, the deal sometimes doesn't stack up.
And it's not, I take it, it's not like eBay that you could say, well, I'm going to bid up to 50,000, but they'll just take the 35 because that's, 1,000 higher than the previous bid. You've had to bid the 35, have you? You had to bid up to 35.
I think in some of the, I mean, this was I'm Sold. Some of you might have known imsold.co.uk, who are quite active in Northwest. But there are some auction online bidding where you can put your highest bid, and if someone bids above your highest bid, then you're automatically out.
Yeah.
So you can actually have like stop loss or highest bid.
Yeah.
But it's not really an auction, is it? It's a competition to be the person who is given the option of buying. It's not an auction like we would normally see.
Yeah, no, I can see that, Sue.
The key attraction is that the seller doesn't pay any fees at all, but of course he really does, because he gets less money for the house.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And the agent does very, very well with the £6,000 fee.
Why would there be a sourcing fee as well as an auction fee?
That's a good question.
Yeah, so this again, I think so. This was actually there was a sourcer in between. A sourcer was actually again, this I found this out later on. I would have gone directly, but here the sourcer got the deal. They got it agreed. I think it was a higher price or something, and they got it agreed to 35,000. I don't know. I could have gone directly in this case, but it was my first purchase, and I thought probably it will be good to go through them, and they had a builder as well, and they had the building team, so I could use their builders. So yeah, I mean, it's something I paid to the source.
It wasn't you, was it, Dan?
No, I have an inkling as to who it was, but no, it wasn't me. I wondered if anybody else has bought through a modern method of auction at all.
I haven't.
I've been put off by it, if I'm honest. I've deliberately avoided properties because of it.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. I haven't viewed anything that's listed as a modern method of auction. It's not a game I want to really get involved with, but it looks here that you've had a bit of success with it, Cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would say the only positive thing of this deal is it was such a low purchase price, and the valuation on this particular street of Stoke, ST6, the valuation did stack up. If the valuation didn't stack up over last 6 months, I would have not got into this deal. So lower purchase price with slightly higher valuation made me go for this deal, and I think it actually it worked out. I mean, what we thought that the valuation was, it luckily we got it.
Excellent.
And Cash, had you seen the property personally?
No, I didn't see the property.
No. Would you do it again without seeing the property?
Yes, I would. If I know the area, I mean, in Stoke, if I know the I know a lot of Stoke now. I mean, at least not as much as Dan and Richard, but there are, if the property comes on a street, and if I know the numbers work, yes, I can send someone to send me a video.
Yeah, if somebody's seen it on your behalf, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's the classic story, isn't there, of the person who bought remotely in an auction a terraced house, and then when you went through the front door, there was nothing, and it was just the facade, the front wall.
Yeah.
Carol, can we hear you, or do you want me to read out your question?
I can read it out.
Yeah.
So I'm jotting down roofing numbers while I'm here as well. You said total money in was 69, but that your profit was 12,460. But if it was valued at 85,
So
that makes that to my math.
No, it's so. So first time when it was valued at 85, I had I think it was the mortgage was 63,000, 75% of 85. So I had around 4,000 money in, 4,250, and then I valued again in 2019. I got around 81 or 82,000 back in. So that 4,000, I got 4,000 back, and then I had a profit of 12,000.
Yeah, profit is the misnomer there, but I can see exactly what you're saying, that it was all money out plus 12,460. Yeah. Cash, I mean, with the mortgaging side of it, obviously there's costs involved in raising finance. So you raised the 85 in 2017, and yeah, probably were pretty pleased with yourself that you've only left 4.5 grand in the deal. Mm-hmm. What was the sort of rationale for 2 years later doing it again? Was that because the particular mortgage had come to the end of its cheap period or something?
Yeah, so I went with the product 2-year fixed rate with Fleet mortgages. It came to an end, and yeah, so instead of going to 5 years, I thought let's go for 2 years and see if I can squeeze more money out of the deal. And yeah, so that was the main rationale.
And of course, if you'd had a valuation of the same amount 2 years later and so couldn't squeeze any more, then the cheap deal becomes quite an expensive deal, doesn't it?
Yeah, although I mean in this one with the 525 rent, it's the returns are still not bad. It's I think it's,
so you misunderstand me. It's a great deal. It's a great deal that you've put up there in total, and I'm sure that from a cash flow point of view, that's fine. But from a mortgage point of view, if you get a 2-year fixed,
oh yes, yeah,
and then after 2 years you haven't got that gain in value, which is is total market gain, isn't it? Because it was finished before you did the 2017 valuation, so it was purely market driven gain. But if that gain hadn't been there and you had been forced to refinance out of an expensive mortgage, then the overall mortgaging costs, if you add the two mortgages together, would be quite an expensive way of doing it. What do you see? Am I right there? As opposed to getting a 5-year mortgage or a 10-year mortgage without, or a 15-year mortgage without any early, early offers on it.
So the way I actually approach that is, I mean the 5-year at that point was quite in 2017 was the rate of interest was quite high at that point, which has meant I would have paid quite a lot in monthly mortgage, monthly payments. But obviously, that would have meant I would have paid the same over like the next 5 years. But I took a view that the market, who knows, with Brexit, and the market might dip, and I would get a slightly better rate and pull the money out after 2 years. So
yeah. So this is really, a classic example, money in, money out example that, a lot of people say that that's how you rinse and repeat and invest, and a lot of other people saying it doesn't exist anymore. Well, you've proven that it can be done. In your case, it was an auction-based purchase, of which there's always an element of risk involved. Did you have the same ability with that as you would as a normal buyer to do all of the due diligence? Did you have the time to do searches and all of that sort of thing before the auction, or did you have to sort of buy it half blind?
One advantage of modern method of auction over traditional is certainly on this deal, we had 28 days to exchange and another 28 days to complete. So we had 56 days, I think. So it gave us a little bit more time. But there was a risk. There was a risk if the searches.
But you knew the risk was $6,000. So basically, if in that 28 days you found out that it was, an absolute duffer that needed new timbers and all sorts doing to it, and it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
You were on the hook for $6,000, but that was the maximum you were on the hook for. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll lose 6,000, but if it works out, then it'll be an asset for long term. And
yeah.
Can I ask the question of what was in your buyer's pack for the auction? Because I'm just thinking back to the one I did. There was a pack of information, and I thought the searches were in that already.
I can't remember now, Carol, but I think there was. It was quite limited. It was there was some land registry details, and the searches. Yeah, I think it was quite limited. We had to do the searches. I mean, Stoke being a coal mining area, luckily there was a long-standing movement around this property, but we didn't get into any major issues.
And I've not bought in this method, Carol. I've seen an HMO with occupants in Nottingham in this method, and it was advertised as a licensed HMO, which it was. and it was certainly advertised as if it were all compliant, but it didn't have the requisite planning. And I was in conversation with the agent about this, and I mentioned to the agent that it didn't have the requisite planning, and they insisted that it did. And I showed to them that it didn't, and it was then withdrawn. So had it been somebody else who wasn't familiar with that, as I was, then they could have easily have bought it, and then found out that they can't use it for what they bought it for. And also, because it had tenants in already and was operating as an HMO, would then maybe have to deal with the enforcement action of the local authority. So
and rent repayment orders.
So yeah,
It's
really
interesting because your comment there I find interesting, because I think a lot of people see licensed HMO and think, yeah, well, we can go from day one, not realizing that they have to reapply for a HMO license. And
I don't love it when the agent says licensed until 2022, you know, or something like that, which is meaningless because it's actually licensed until the day it transacts. and then you need a new license. So Dan, Richard, you're local. Can you give a view on this deal?
I mean, I'm impressed that Cash has bought something through modern method of auction more than anything, actually. I'd be interested to know more about what area it's in, but for me, it's 3 beds, and that's really the sort of thing that I think Stoke has massive demand for. One of the things that we're concentrating on when we're sourcing at the moment is 3 beds and off-road parking if we can, just trying to source family homes. It's one of the biggest things that I'm conscious of for any investor is exit and how do they get rid of this property. So instead of them purchasing a rubbish 2-bed in one of the less nice parts of Stoke, to put it politely, I think you're very limited on your exit. I think you are going to be really either bidding the nuts from investors or going to have a challenge selling it. It's not really a homeowner's area, whereas I think with these 3 beds and the sort of stuff that we're trying to source, which it could be a similar deal, that's a big focus of ours.
Are there really less nice areas of Stoke, Dan?
They're rare.
This is my university town we're talking about.
Whereabouts is it, Cash?
This is Golden Hill Estate.
Okay. So it's quite a way out of Stoke Centre then, really.
Yeah, it's quite a way out. But there's a patch. I mean, if you guys want to focus, there's a patch in Golden Hill where there is a demand for family, whether it's renting or buying. So again, like any other town and city, there's only one patch within big patch, right? So you got to be careful where we are buying. The second street or 2-3 streets from this street is where the things go downhill. Yeah.
And Cash, I want to mention something about that, because it's all very well showing these deals from an investor's point of view, but what's really important here is your customer and the longevity of I don't know who's got noise in the background if they want to mute themselves, but you know, I've got one in Mansfield which is nice and settled now, but it took 3 years to get it settled because of quality tenant. If anybody can find out who's got the background, I can mute them. But so what would you say, Cash, is, you know, from a tenant point of view here, you know, what sort of rent are you asking, and are there lower rents, you know, where are you pitching in the market? Are you sort of tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, you know?
So the current tenants are blue collar workers.
Yeah.
And the rent I'm getting on this one is 525 per month. Yeah. There's a decent school not far from this properties. That's why a family. I think that it's a blue collar worker, and
And I'm sure that there's 450s out there which are attracting the people who can't afford the 525, I imagine. So
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
the lowest of the low in that regard. Yeah.
Certainly.
Excellent. That was a great start.
Quick question for Cash.
Yeah, hi
Can
Richard.
jump in there. Yeah, hi, Cash. Sorry, I came in a bit late. Don't know if the question's already been asked, but I was intrigued. I mean, it's a great deal. You got all your money out. Fantastic. After 2 years, that's all right. It'd been nice the first year, but 2 years is good enough.
Well, you try to bargain.
Yeah, I'll try to. Interesting to see you've not actually been to see it. So who do you use for your refurbishment and getting it all spick and span and ready for your tenants? How do you do that?
So I mean, on this one, the person who was sourcing, they knew a builder, and that was one of the reason. They've seen the property and they had the building team. I was slightly nervous. I've not seen it, but I have been speaking to this sourcer for a very long time, and they had the builder ready on that particular, and he was free to crack on. So
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was a risk. I mean, if you look at the deal before you go in, I didn't buy a property in Stoke. It was, why would you buy through modern method of auction and with structural issues, and you don't know the builder. But I mean, sometimes as entrepreneurs, you look at I looked at the numbers actually. I went by the numbers in this case, looked at the facts and data, and I thought, okay, let's take a risk, and
yeah,
I'm sure we can turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, purchase price is low, so yeah, your risk's going to be relative. Okay, well, good. It's worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great to see, isn't it, that you can do a 3-bedder, which is, to be honest, many people who've done the HMOs and everything else, and probably including myself, is if you had your time again, you'll just do 3-bedroom semis over and over, and take your time and not be too greedy, and just enjoy the the benefits of having a really good solid tenant in for the long term. And the other thing, Cash, I think is interesting, a little from an angle of an investor that actually is coming to the market with money to invest. So for example, if you'd have had a couple of 100,000 under your belt, and you wanted to do this deal, this idea of all money out is a great concept, but it actually doesn't get you very far, because you still got the 200 grand in your bank at the end of it, and you're thinking, well, I'd rather just leave sort of 10 grand in each one, so I've got a return in investment, rather than get it all out and have something for nothing, because then you've got to keep going. And I know it's I know that the reality of the matter, but that there is a sort of a mental issue there, that actually I started out here to invest this 200 grand, and I haven't been very successful. I've got 10 properties and I've still got my 200 grand.
That's a problem I'd happily have further down the line. Yeah, I'd be all right with that.
Just to add, the modern method of auction, we did that in 2016, first time I came across it, when we bought one of our first HMOs, and it was a shock to realize you hit with that auction fee. It did. Yeah, we were very naive, and modern method of auction, it was so it ended up costing us quite a bit more as the bottom line for that.
Not many. I mean, what I've seen since I bought it and speaking to investors, not many investors are get excited about this strategy. This 6,000p fee, admin fee, which is, you actually buy that straight away. It's once your offer is accepted, or once your bid is accepted, it's almost like you have to pay. And this agents they don't, once the offer is accepted, they won't stay. They won't wait for next day. They will be on the phone. You have to pay this or else. So not many investors are actually getting excited about this
There's
No.
more high street agents doing it as well now, I've noticed, especially back end of last year. I think
Right.
that's certainly in our area that there was the most modern method of auctions. It does seem to have dipped off a little bit this year from what I've seen, but that could be just reflective of the fact that everything's selling quite quickly.
Yeah. Well, my experience in 2016 was a high street agent. It was done through those. They were based in Loughborough, and this was sold. It was a particular issue. It was a drug's den at one stage, and but it was sold to us on the premise that, you know, it's a modern method of doing it. It will be extremely quickly, and the guy wanted his money pretty quick. So, as it turned out, they ended up dragging their heels, and it cost us more, and I saw no benefit in it at all.
Which agent was it, Richard?
Say again?
Which agent was it?
Just bear me 1 second.
Okay.
I don't know if I can see it.
And of course, it, you know, by the name, it defines it as a modern method of auction. I imagine that it's quite new to many agents who are trying to, you know, let's give this a go. Let's try this modern method. So for some of them, it could be the first time the agent does it.
I think they get half the fee for the using the auction. So they're a funnel into SDL or I Am Sold or one of those, and therefore they probably get far more for a piddly little terraced house than they would do if they sold it direct.
And of course, they've got the dates, haven't they? They've got the timeline, and that's so important for an estate agent. If you know you've got literally, you can get that into your debtor book.
Yeah.
You know, because the one thing that agents generally, traditionally, they might have loads of deals done, but they've got no cash coming in, and they don't know when it's coming in.
No, exactly. But I think it's a 50-50 split. So there's a very rich picking for the agent.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, it was, in my case, it was your move.
Okay.
They're down on Baxter Gate, Loughborough.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Right. Well, thanks a million for that, Cash. That was excellent.
Very good.
So if you'd like to stop your screen share.
Sure.
And as we've been talking, I've had an email come through that I've just brokered a bridging loan between a good mate of mine and a Unity member of over 300 grand, actually, and that's just happened. So I'm very pleased about that. And I'm either going to lose a Unity member and a good friend, or so we'll have to wait and see how that one goes. But no, it's a very, very safe bet with a top guy. So I'm sure that's going to be absolutely fine. So who's going next?
I'll go next if you like.
Good. So Richard, I'm gonna make you. Dan, are you going to get involved in this? Because I can make you a co-host as well.
Yeah. I think Richard and I'll do it holding hands like we normally do everything.
So I'm going to make you both co-hosts, which means that if you want to share your screen, you can. Hold on a minute.
Yeah, of course.
That's all done. So over to you.
Yep. So slight change of tack in a way from buy-to-lets to rent-to-rent model, but still in Stoke area. So I'm Richard, I'm Dan Cheaton's business partner. We're based in Stoke and Crewe, that's where we operate. We have a rent-to-rent business together, and this started about 12 months ago when we first got to know each other. I'm a doctor by day, but had started my own rent-to-rent business based in Crewe. I had one unit there, and realised after meeting Dan on social media that we had some shared skills or complementary skills, and Dan was already operating in the rent-to-rent arena from sort of a HMO perspective, and thought it'd be useful to get together and see if we could do something together. So the deal we're going to talk about today is the first one that we did together. I will just share my screen. Here we go. So you might ask, why rent to rent? When I first started in property, I had some capital and thought, do I go and put that down as deposits, or do I try and stretch that cash a bit further? So in rent to rent, my mind was, let's put the money into renting, starting up a business, and using sort of arbitrage method and to rent out these properties on a nightly rate to try and get my money to go further. So when Dan and I got together, we had the same kind of ideas really, to build a trading business with each other, to build cash flow, to supplement our incomes, but also to kind of funnel that money into other property ventures that we were interested in. So we do some sourcing as well, and also wanted to plow some of that money into our own buy-to-lets and just have some capital reserves really. So rent to rent is good because it's got low upfront costs to set up, and you can leverage your skills that we've just discussed. So we did a number of ways you can find rent-to-rent deals, either through agents or through direct to vendor. And we did a lot of sort of outbound messaging over Facebook and Open Rent, but we actually got in contact with this landlord through Facebook Marketplace. And we made contact with her, and it was a simple 2-bed terrace in the Harts Hill area of Stoke. She, as a landlord, was struggling with loads of commitments at work and a busy family. She was managing the property as well, and it was just not worth her time. And we came to her sort of suggesting that we'll take on all of the management, give her a flat fee, a flat rent, predictable for her, and she can just go on and do van life, which is what she was hoping to do. So this property needed a little bit of a light refurb. We converted one of the downstairs rooms into a bedroom. The market rent for the area is sort of similar, 525 to 550. I can't quite remember, Dan, if you remember. But given the fact we were tarting it up a bit and we're going to cause her to have more free time, she was happy to rent it to us for £440 a month. And we knew from our area research that it could achieve a rent of around £120 per night for short stay. The accommodation in the area averaged over the year is around 56% occupancy, which is around 17 nights the places get booked for. So we knew after doing the kind of the analysis that it would really work, and we'd be able to make some good money from it and also help a landlord out. So just a few before and after photos. It just needed a bit of paint, bit of tidying up, and some design, which we did over the space of, Dan, do you remember how long ago? It was about two or three
weeks. It was our first one, and I cleared off on holiday and left you to do it.
Yeah, so we just had our own, we know a load of painters and decorators and builders in the area. We just came in and did all of the tarting up. I did a bit of the design and bought the furniture and so forth. So just made it look really nice. She's had some trouble with some tenants beforehand. They were really messy, weren't paying their rent, weren't paying their bills. We're still getting letters from companies chasing their bills. So actually, we did her a favor. In terms of the numbers, we put into it £7,000, which was a loan agreement from an investor over sort of 12 months. And the average turnover is around £2,000 a month. Once you've taken the fixed cost of actually renting the place, plus the variable costs that are involved in running a service accommodation, linens and cleaning and other bits of things like that. Average profits around £1,000 a month. So all our money was really out by 7 months. And we've agreed this deal on over 5 years. So we now have the next 4 years just to earn that from it really. So it's a good return on our money now because it's all out. And I'll just show you the Airbnb link. So with what we tried to do in our short stay accommodation business, we tried to list on as many agents as we can. So at Airbnb, Booking.com, we've got some corporate contractors as well, corporate relocation agents that we work with as well. So it's about 7 or 8 different platforms that we list on, and we have our own website as well. So actually, we've had really good occupancy from this house, and since taking on this one property together, we've now expanded. We've got 7 units in total now, 3 in Stoke, 3 in Crewe, and we're viewing all the time really for more for our current landlords who want to have more of these. So we're carrying on expanding, and the money we are just using to funnel into our other projects as well. Shall I just stop my share or go back to?
Before you stop your share, Richard, could you pop down to the map a minute?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
This is the Harts Hill area of Stoke-on-Trent.
Yeah, that's right.
And would I be right? Is this the Ryanair principle of, you know, when you say it's in Alton Towers? How far is Alton Towers from there?
Yeah, Alton Towers is not far away at all.
Okay.
It's about 25-minute, half an hour drive down to A50.
Yeah.
So where is it here?
Toxter, isn't it?
It's really not that far away. So we have our target market really is contractors Monday to Friday. And then at the weekends, it gets booked by Alton Towers, which is in sort of this zone here.
Yeah.
So really well placed for that.
Yeah.
Good. I guess the target guests that we have are typically, like most of the people that you'll see on social media, it is contractors Monday to Friday. And we've been very fortunate with Stoke, at least for the last 12 months, with the amount of rejuvenation and things that are happening there, especially in Hanley. When I first started working in Stoke 5-6 years ago, Hanley didn't have an awful lot to offer, and now they have really started to regenerate it, and there is more things to come. So that's helped underpin that market for us. And Richard runs the majority of this and does a lot of the guest management, and he's been very good at retaining guests. So a lot of our customers have been repeat customers as well. But the thing that I've quite enjoyed about the SA side of things is that my background was initially high street lettings, so single lets. And then I was very naive and entered into the world of HMOs. And I started to build up a rent to HMO portfolio prior to meeting Richard. And ultimately for me, being at the coalface of it, it began to be a little unpleasant, ultimately dealing with people that were renting rooms at £300 a month that didn't want to pay that rent and saw no value in it. This has been systemized and automated really quite well, to a point where there's not an awful lot of guest communication. We have a really great clean team and a maintenance team. And to be quite honest with you, we don't hear an awful lot from it now. And one of the mistakes that I think I had made was not appreciating the value in a trading business. And especially since we've had, which I'll come to later, working with Rupert on the bookkeeping side, I've really understood more the value of having a trading business which funnels into the investments. My initial plan with property was to go and invest. But ultimately, if you don't have something that's going to generate that cash for you, you're either going to need to work with people or find the money from somewhere. And this is one example of a trading business that helps us with that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So just going back to my earlier question about the area, I don't know, it might have missed some other people, but I think that was excellent marketing on the top, which you actually, I mean, was it called Venture House when you took it on, or is that a name that you've given it?
No, it's called 2 Gerrard Street, which is
Gerrard Street. So, first of all, Venture House, first house of your joint venture. What, obvious, fantastic name from it. But secondly, the fact that it says Venture House, can't remember exactly what it says, but it just basically says Alton Towers, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the way to do it. And in fact, the landlord that we managed this one for, she bought another property in Trent Vale, which is not too far away, and we've done the same thing to that one. I can show you that link as well, actually. I just zip back to it here.
I mean, it's not the most obvious thing to go into the centre of Stoke and call it Alton Towers, but how many guests are you actually attracted just by putting that into the title?
Lots. I mean, when it's just about being flexible. When coronavirus hit, we changed our marketing straight away to aim towards self-isolation for key workers and that kind of thing, and that attracted a guest that we had for 2 months from Royal Stoke, so which is only 5 minutes down the road. So yeah, you just have to be.
I mean, for those that don't know, it'd be like having something in Kingston and calling it Chessington World of Adventures,
Yeah.
It's good to see these, because all I see is the numbers, so it's nice to see the photos.
Yes, yeah, of course. Yeah. But this was a battered old HMO that's needed a good refurb as well. It had a full new kitchen, utility area, and all of the bedrooms were sort of well, they were completely modernized, really, had new window coverings and everything. And this one had its first booking within maybe 24 hours of listing it. So with the latest one we've taken on, which was for a different investor, that first booking was very quick as well. It's just, you have to start listing them straight away, even if it's in the middle of the refurb. So,
and I'm sure that there's people who have not up to now considered doing SA that might just be thinking now, is it for me? Could this be something I could do in the future? So could you just take us through the decision-making process? I mean, Stoke have got a lot of properties in. You've chosen a bog standard, very nicely presented end terrace.
yeah.
What's your tick box criteria?
For me, it was about exit initially. So I knew that HMOs worked, but not that I enjoyed it. So my criteria was, will this work on the same principles as my rent to HMOs work? So that would be effectively a rent coverage ratio that I used to have. And if this SA thing didn't work out with Richard, then we could convert it back to a HMO. And that, again,
the second exit was
exit defined, yeah. Richard had a slightly more intelligent criteria than that, because when we first met, he had pages and pages and pages of why Stoke was a good investment area and why Crewe was a good investment area for SA. So right back to you, if you can remember any of that.
Well, I mean, the very first thing that you can do is just check to see if there's a hotel in the area, and then if there is, you know, there's demand for short stay, and it's as simple as that. And if you can position yourself between a theme park and you know, other developments, then it should really work fine. The key thing with contractors, which are a really good market, is they tend to want off-road parking, minimum of 3 bedrooms. They don't mind twinning up. So it's just knowing what the target avatar is. And then, you know, it helps you then when you're looking around at the different properties as to whether they would work or not.
Yeah, three bedrooms then. I mean, would you do 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, or would you not go that far?
Yeah, so we have a 5-bedroom property in Crewe, and the rest of the properties are 4 bedrooms.
Right.
So plenty of capacity there. Great for families as well at the weekend. So,
and for the contractor market, are you doing shared bedrooms? You showed us photos, but just
at the current situation, no, but that they are acceptable to that. So we have Venture House in particular, 2 upstairs rooms do twin, and at the beginning of our period with that was rented out as twins all the while. So
I know a number of people use this zip and link, where you can make double beds for the weekend and single beds for the day for the weekdays. Yes. But of course, the additional cost and admin of that is that you need the extra linen.
That's true. But I mean, it depends how you're going to structure that. We work with a local linen company who are more than happy to provide us with all the linen at no extra stock holding charge or anything. We've been able to negotiate on that, so that actually doesn't affect us too much. But I can imagine it would if you're doing it by yourself.
So parking, secure, safe parking, I think is probably the best description. Would you say? That's
these ultimately preventing vans getting broken into. That's the key for the contractor market. Obviously, that's a big risk for those guys. So it's ensuring that the area when they turn up doesn't look like the Bronx and they can see the van outside.
Yeah, and as I say, we want to pick houses that can be nice family buy-to-lets as well. So they tend to be on nice, quiet roads anyway, and that works for both of those.
And any comments from the neighbours?
No, I think I had one letter because we did have one party, but we do all of our guest screening now a lot tighter, so we haven't had any complaints. In fact, one of our neighbours does our bins for us. So
I was going to say, do you get a relationship with the neighbours, or do you just sort of
they're the eyes and ears really. We don't do any. Some SA operators have the little sound monitoring devices in there, but I've never needed it.
No.
So.
Right. I mean, I'm fascinated, to be honest. I hope others find this interesting, because it's great to talk about this strategy.
Yeah, I'm very interested as well. Yeah.
We generally hear the sort of negative side of this strategy a lot. So it's great to hear one that's being done properly and that's working well. Has anybody got any other questions on this for Richard and Dan?
Yeah, I have. Hi, Richard and Dan.
Hi.
Yeah, just wondering the numbers are like compared to HMO and in terms of the work required as well?
Numbers wise, I think one of the biggest difficulties I have with talking about HMO numbers is the true numbers. And one thing I see put on Facebook regularly is room rate per week or room rate per month. And I tend to view things over a longer course of that. So actually, what's your room rate over the course of the year? And when you reduce that down, when you include void payments, voids or non-payments or whatever it might well be, your actual room rate figure, especially in my experience in Stoke, is far lower than what it may initially be advertised. We couldn't create the same or generate the same income from these types of properties on a HMO basis. They are far more profitable for us as an SA. Especially with charging £120 per night. Effectively, we have to cover our fixed costs and a small amount of variable costs, which is cleaners, linens, and any other SA associated costs. But after that, it's all about occupancy, and the biggest variable really is your guests. So we took a bit of a hit during the initial lockdown of COVID. We made the decision to put the properties onto open rent and spare room, and we tenanted them for between 1 and 3 months for the whole portfolio, with key workers that needed to be in the area. So I think we had a midwife, we had someone that was basically stuck here from India, another hospital worker.
As HMOs though, you tenanted them?
No, as single families effectively. So we just went, what's our fixed costs? You can have it at that for between 1 and 3 months. And then after that point, you either go back to paying the nightly rate or we'll see you later.
Yeah.
But comparatively, these types of properties, we wouldn't be able to generate the same amount of income as we would do if we ran it as a HMO.
It's money on time invested as well. At the moment, we get we just get an email or so from a guest when a booking comes in. It just pings to your phone, and it's all systemized such that the cleaner gets notified when a booking's just been made, and they really are running the show in terms of turning the property around. So for us, it's just a few emails for that, whereas that's a lot different to HMOs.
Yeah, I think with HMOs, it's smooth when you've got the right tenants, and one bad tenant can make it very bumpy ride. With SA, you replace tenant with cleaner. It's very, very smooth if you've got a great, reliable cleaner, and can be very rocky without that. Would you agree with that, Richard?
That's a really good point. Yeah, I like that.
Is it down to the systems that you use as well? What systems do you guys use?
So all of the booking platforms called online travel agents, they link to something called Channel Manager, which we use one called Tokeet, which is very easily customizable from our side. So, we've got cleaning handbooks for the cleaners, which are essentially in an email that they get sent. So I can stick a little link in there and I can customize it to that level. So all of the guest messaging, all of the messaging from the guests, once they have any issues with the property, comes straight through to Tokeet. It just emails into it. And I have that app on my phone as well. So, it's very centralized.
QR codes for the guests as well. So when they arrive, they have QR codes on anything to make it very foolproof, so that they know how to use any appliance or how to work their way around the house. They have full information before they arrive. The cleaner actually has QR codes so that they know they've tested the smoke alarms. They do a linen stock check, which also gets sent back in a report to us as well. So I think it wouldn't be this seamless if it wasn't as automated, definitely.
That's really interesting with QR code. Sorry, so does that mean that you've got a QR code on the actual smoke detector, so the cleaner actually knows to? No,
just I'll show you quickly. It's something that you can just generate Can you see my screen okay there?
No.
Oh, sorry, here we are.
You need to share, yeah.
Is that better? Okay, so operations, information boards. So this is just, so we'll take Venture House, for example. So I've just generated, this is all the information that we put in the property, accident and emergency stuff, blah, 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 waste and recycling. So you can generate a QR code here on QR Code Monkey for free. So you can just navigate to the Stoke-on-Trent, bin day website, and then plug that website QR code Monkey, and it'll generate that for you. You can just cut and paste it in there. And then Wi-Fi connection, got the gas safety certificate, and then these are the forms. So cleaning handbook. It's not formatted well on here because it's only showing the preview, but it's got a fire alarm check, consumables to reorder, guest handbook, lost property form, all that sort of stuff. So you don't really need to be contacted that much once that's in the house.
And it's the advantage of that. It means you can change the information, but you keep the same QR code. Is that why you do it that way?
Yes. So we use Google. Sorry, my little girl's coming in. Just one moment. So yeah, we use Google Drive quite a lot. So if I do update any of the forms, it automatically updates it. It updates the link. So the link stays the same, but the content's different. So you can scan the QR code, and
so you don't have to print out and put a new page in the house. It's just
great idea.
The latest information is available by the guest just taking their iPhone to that QR code. I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of restaurants do that kind of in the kind of post-COVID sort of world, where they don't give out menus when you sit down and just scan the QR code. And the menu.
Yeah, I think it looks really professional for the guests as well. They seem to enjoy it. We've had positive feedback from those. And for me, if I was to turn up to somewhere that had that sort of serving or offering, sorry, the little girl distracting me. If I had that sort of offering there, then I would automatically assume there's a level of professionalism. We have like a notice board up on the side and things. So it helps with that.
Yeah. We were talking numbers earlier, and not to hijack your presentation, but the apartment behind me is my 2-bedroomed flat, and there's 2 sofa beds in it as well. So you could physically fit 8 people in, but I restrict it to 6. When I bought that, it was a wreck and it needed doing up, but there was a tenant in situ in the flat, and she was paying $525 a month. Now, to be fair, done up the way it has been done up, it's probably market value of around $650, $675 a month. So that's where we are, and that's gross rent. I run this on in a limited company. It's the only thing that's in that limited company, so I'm including all accountancy fees and everything in the figures that I'm saying now. There is no borrowing on it. So you need to take that into account, that there's no interest payments, or it's not a rent to rent, so there's no rent payments going out. But the non-COVID profit and loss was consistently bringing in £1,400 a month after all costs as a net profit. And that illustrates, the huge difference of a well-run SA over its equivalent on buy-to-let.
Yeah.
But are there any other accountants in the room, Sue? Is there not a problem with SA that hasn't been mentioned yet? I think she might have gone, actually. Yeah, no, she's not here anymore. Tell us about the hidden demon of SA.
Yeah, so this is one of the, I don't know how to necessarily enter into this, but we have Rupert as a bookkeeper, which is something that's been really good. And if you don't have a bookkeeper or would like to have a better insight into your profit and loss each month and have someone that helps you be quite accountable and is a little bit of a Yoda, I'd certainly recommend having a conversation with Rupert, because he's been absolutely fantastic for us. And one of the things that we stumbled across was that I think roughly we worked out that our rent to SAs were operating in somewhere like a 30% profit margin. And obviously the turnover is huge. I don't know if you saw that when Richard flashed to his screen, Venture has done about 3,500 gross revenue in October. So you quickly hit the VAT threshold, which is massively uncomfortable for an SA business. So what we actually made the decision to do under Rupert's guidance was effectively sell our rent to SA contracts and move to service accommodation management. So if the rent to SA produces maybe, let's say, £800 to £1,000 a month, and that's operating at about 30% of the turnover, we found that managing was more like 60-70% profit. And we'd be able to run much higher up to the VAT threshold by managing rather than that. And also it would release some capital for us if we were to sell these contracts on for fees as well.
And in reality, there's no difference, is there? or very little difference. It's just the structuring of the agreements, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. There's very little difference for us. It allows us to scale more. It's still the same operation from our side.
So this is the difference between saying to the landlord, I'll give you 450 a month, and then taking all of the revenue, and not even your revenue, and even higher revenue that Booking.com take, that you need to account for.
Yeah, sure.
And taking all of that revenue into your top line, of which you're only allowed a maximum of 85,000 a year. But if you then do a management agreement with the owner instead, and whether you agree a fixed amount through the management agreement or whether you agree a percentage, that's more of a commercial arrangement between you and the owner. But it is your margin that is going into your revenue line. So you can scale up 4, 5, 6 times through a management model than you can on a direct rent, sublet, rent to rent model. From that point of view. And then, you know, once you do hit, I mean, eventually both models will hit the VAT threshold, but the point being is that when you hit the VAT threshold with the management model, you have a much larger business. You have a business that is scaled to a point where it could probably support the VAT payments much better. And you're in a position to scale it further and get through that VAT threshold and into a much larger operation from that point. But with the rent to rent model, I think, was it 4 properties, 3, maybe even 3 properties, and you'd hit that VAT threshold. And of course, the VAT, for those of you with mathematical minds, is 16.67% of the revenue. But not your revenue, Booking.com's revenue. They've already taken 15. So it's 16.67% of what the guest pays to Booking.com. And of course, as you know, many trading business models operate on a 20%, you know, ish net profit margin to revenue. That 16.67 of that 20 is just taken away from you overnight. It's hugely significant. You can mitigate the 16.67 a little bit because you can reclaim against that amount with any of your purchases. But an SA, a well-run operation in SA, doesn't actually have a lot of VATable purchases. Your cleaning is unlikely to be with a VAT-registered cleaning company, so you're not getting it in the cleaning, and therefore it's just, you know, the supplies. And such like that you'll get. So you might end up paying, you know, having a net VAT of about 15% at the end of the day, which is hugely significant. So a great little model to run, you know, if you wanted to try it, run alongside your buy-to-let portfolio, as long as you don't, you know, run it to a point that you're earning more than £85,000 a year from. And of course, this year, none of us knew about this, but and you know, I'm sure we all have our opinions on it. But the fact is that all of these operators got £10,000 per unit from the government through COVID as a grant from the local council.
Yeah. And I think we found out now we're in tier 2 lockdown. We'll be getting a £2,000 grant per month. Was it, Dan?
I've heard that today.
You're speaking far too soon on that money, but
yeah,
yes.
I think it's up to. So and it's going to be issued by the council, and each council will have their rules. But certainly you'll have the opportunity to apply for it, and that's per month as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and the caveat, it has to be on business rates as opposed to council tax, which is what the SA should be on anyway.
Yeah. And I do imagine that with the most recent announcement that there might need to be a little bit more proof of hardship, as opposed to just a blanket, you know, if you're on business rates, we'll give it to you. But tell us about rates, Dan, and your properties. What's the situation?
Richard?
Well, the rent to SA that's in my company, I was able to claim a grant on that and put that onto business rates. It's probably wise to put the business rates on the first property in your company that's got the highest rateable value. So in Dan and myself and Dan's company, that's one of the properties in Crewe that we put onto business rates. Venture House is still paying council tax at the moment, but that's something we can change over. So you just make a judgment based on the rateable value, and you can actually get that estimated on the VOA, the Valuer Officers Agency website, so you can see what your rates.
So and your first property, you don't pay any business rates, do you? Because you have small business rates relief on. Yeah. So it actually comes down to zero.
Yeah.
How long is it zero for though, Richard? Because it's not indefinite, is it?
Yes, it's indefinite. Yeah.
Indefinite. Right. Okay.
Well, let me just say, with my position, I've got one property. So it's indefinitely zero because I have small business rates relief for my business and for that property. As you add more properties, you don't get the same level of relief for the other properties that you have if you have more than one property. And this is not specific to service accommodation. This will be, if you had a shop, any business with more than one property in that regard. And I have to say, I don't know the ins and outs of the rulings of what it is as it goes up in the number of properties. Yeah, but there's not legally a choice between whether you have council tax and business rates, but practically there is. In that these properties are so interchangeable between buy-to-let and service accommodation. It generally follows that you lead the way. So you would be saying to the council, look, this is not eligible for council tax because there's no permanent residence in it. And then they would get it valued for and send you a business rates bill. But and so there is an element of choice as to whether or not you choose to inform the council of that. They could, in theory, come round or see you on Airbnb and impose that you go onto business rates. So in legal terms, there's not a choice. You either are rateable, because of your status, or you are subject to council tax because of your status. In practical terms, you can pick and choose. Mm-hmm. And of course, they could retrospectively change things, which could influence you in the future. That was great. I mean, obviously, it's a key interest of mine. So really enjoyed that. Any other questions? Brilliant.
How much time do you spend, Richard and Dan, on the business? I take everything is systemized, so it's mainly monitoring the KPIs and looking at the business from a high level.
Yeah, gosh, it's difficult to say because they come in fits and starts, really. The messaging is only a few hours a day, really, a few hours a week, really. It tends to be on a Friday or a Sunday when you get a lot of booking inquiries. And then we've had very few maintenance issues. So it's mainly preparation for our monthly meeting with Rupert that we sit down and get our heads together. We have a sort of a weekly meeting, coffee meeting to talk all things property. So it's freed us up really to do those things that we find most enjoyment in because of that systemization, essentially.
Yeah, I kind of view this as different tiers. So I don't spend very much time on this at all. Our intention at the start of the year was to aim to do some flips because we had the capital investors to do so. With COVID and us being slightly frightened by it, we didn't go ahead and do that. And one of the decisions that we decided to do was to start sourcing together. I'd previously sourced properties prior to working with Richard, but there's definitely going to be a benefit in us doing that together. So a lot of my time has been spent focusing, gearing up to what was sort of classed as phase 2, which would be the next trading business and sourcing the buy-to-lets for a group of investors. And then the next stage after that will be concentrating on another trading business, which would be the flips to follow on from it. But at the moment, I spend very, very little time on the SA stuff at all.
But just the bookkeeper thing, it's all done by my son, Ollie, and I take an overview and I just mentoring him really. Then I do this FD call once a month. So once we've got all the accounts together, we've got the management accounts. So sort of going back to the days where I used to have to present it to my boss, we get on Zoom and I present the accounts to Dan and Richard. hopefully in the future, you know, in time to come, Ollie will be able to take that role as well. But so that's the background to that. And we certainly don't have many bookkeeping clients, but just enough to keep Ollie ticking over and a bit of income and keeping busy from home from that point of view. Great, well, thanks a million for that. And that was really interesting. And we're going to move on to, well, either Colin or Richard, whoever wants to go first. Colin's put his hand up.
Yeah, because I've got to go at 8. Leicester are playing. I can't tell you because I don't know how to pronounce it. It's somebody in the Europa League. Kazakhstan or somewhere or other. Yeah, so have I got a share screen, Rupert? Or...
Oh, sorry, yeah. Let me just give you that. Make co-host. There we go. Everyone will be a co-host by the end.
So Rupert has planned this evening really well, but because mine is a different discussion point. My background is banking. I was the area director for Lloyds about 4 years ago. They offered me a golden handshake and I took that with a view to starting up as a broker. But then I was approached by a company called Norwich and Peterborough Commercial Lending, who wanted to build their business down in London, and they asked me to do that. So I did that for 2 years. And then I started with my son, who was about 27, something like that, this company about 2.5 years ago. And we are a brokerage, commercial mortgage brokerage, buy-to-lets, development and what have you. Aside from that, we also are obviously seeing a lot of developments and purchases and have an interest in the property market. So we have a sort of standard buy-to-let which runs itself. And then a year last February, March, April, we were desperately trying to source a flip for ourselves, just something in Nottingham where we sort of live. Oh no, I mustn't say that now because we'll be tier 3 before we know it. But yeah, so I just remember a snowy, wet February afternoon, about a Tuesday, driving into the centre of Nottingham and sort of a district, and the street was full of cars. And you think, well, what's going on here? And there was something like 30 to 40 people viewing this terrace house that was going to be a flip. And having put offers in for about 20 or 30 flips, we became disillusioned with that because just couldn't get anything to work. So about October, November, we decided to look at an HMO in Mansfield and put our money into that. That fell through because of Japanese knotweed. Then we looked again this February at a more complex flip. So if I do that, what do I do? There we are. Is that, yeah? So it's still live, even though we started this in February, and that's probably part of the storyline, really. It's in a suburb of Nottingham. I won't tell too much details because I say it's still yet to be finalised. And it's a block of 4 terraced houses, of which there's some scruffy commercial units downstairs and sort of flats at the back and above. And we were looking to buy 2 of them. And the purchase price has been agreed at 162,000. And it started off that we got planning to convert them into a 3-bed and a 2-bed terraced house. And it was a bigger project than this. But when we started looking at the numbers, the converting one of the 2 beds involved a full extension, two-story extension at the back of one of these terraces. And when we really got into the numbers, you thought we're spending, I think it was an extra £60,000 of refurbishment money to get £60,000 enhanced value. And then you've got the extra contingency, extra lending fees and so on. And it just didn't seem to quite tally up. So we've reapproached the planners and we've now got planning for a 3-bed terraced house and a 1-bed maisonette adjoining in the 2 properties. So the refurb costs have come down, and the finance costs have come down, the planning and monitoring surveyors fees have come down, and the lending costs have come down, because originally it had been a 12-month project. We now think we've managed it at 9 months, but it'll probably come in less than that. So these are fairly pessimistic or conservative pricings, and the difference in some of those figures are like contingency. Well, our partner is the building company, so we're not gone out for quotes. You know, he's got a vested interest in getting this done on cost. So yes, we put 10% in, but probably in this case we can trip it down to about £3,000. Professional fees, will reduce those because we've got no stamp duty to pay, or very little stamp duty, because it's commercial. Legal's the same, valuation's the same. Planning and architects, we've left that in, but probably some of that will come down. The PMS fees will come down, and the lender's interest will come down. So it all sort of stacks up with profit between 55 and 68, 70. And that all sounds pretty rosy. So we're all progressing to do that. So we started this in February. The bridging funders then pulled out because of COVID. So we found another. They pulled out in the beginning of April because of COVID. And then we struggled to find funders because of the commercial element from day one. So most bridges nowadays will not touch commercial elements in a bridging deal. But anyway, we've found some funders, and that was all okay. All progressing nicely to legals in the last month or so, until we found out that the courtyard gardens for all 4 of these terrace houses is unregistered land and belongs to nobody. So we've now been trying to make sure that we cover ourselves and make this deal attractive, because there is another implication which I'll share with you, and trying to get the courtyard gardens, which are essential to a 3-bedroom and a 1-bedroom maisonette, just to have they're not huge, but there's this little bit of garden that goes with it. The vendor doesn't see it as a problem and doesn't have any sort of major interest in resolving it. Land Registry are currently working about 12 months delay. And the other problem we've got is that one of these houses is adjoining a pub. It's a village pub, it's a nice village area. So we've always had this concern that the potential purchasers, if we flip it, or the potential buy-to-let funders, if we keep it, will be very averse to being next to a pub. And as COVID has taught us in the last 2 or 3 months in particular, the lenders are very picky and choosy about what they will and won't do. So we do have this concern about the pub. Fortunately, the pub joins the 1-bedroom maisonette rather than the 3-bed terrace. So we feel that we could either mortgage or sell the 3-bed terrace, and then probably be okay with the 1-bed maisonette. But what we're not happy about is having an added burden of the lack of garden and this unregistered land, even though they're talking about insurance policies and all the likes, because as soon as somebody applies for a mortgage and it goes to their lender's legal team, they'll be saying there's a pub next door and there's a problem with the garden. So we're in negotiations at the moment, and we've sort of said that we'll probably only proceed if there was sizable retention, and sizable, we've put a figure of £20,000, so that we'd hold back £20,000 to make sure the vendor was bought into aiding and trying to get this thing resolved, either until the Land Registry is resolved or until the properties are sold. that's where we are at the moment. That's why it's still live.
That's really interesting. I'm interested that your best and worst case GDV is the same. Do you not?
Well, no, that's all right. We've had those revalued at those figures just recently.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay, we probably could put some more conservative in there.
Because of course, if we are facing a reduction in values in the future, I mean,
yeah,
I don't know what figure you could put on that as a maximum reduction.
No.
A worst case scenario, I would say 20% is a worst case scenario.
And it wipes out all the profit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't expect it to go that low. But you say it's a commercial building at the moment. Did you say that, or is it?
Yeah, it's got it's hairdressers downstairs.
Yeah. So, units. Had you considered, I mean, putting together what we've heard tonight and what we heard in our previous conference, and the fact that it's next to a pub, if you were to hold this property and use it for serviced accommodation, then you would get capital allowances on this, wouldn't you?
Yeah. That isn't our. It goes a long way down our strategy. Yeah. We really wanted our money out because we want to use it again. So that it's very much a flip for sale.
Yeah.
And also there's 3 parties involved. So the other party wants his money out, but there is the option to term it out onto a mortgage.
Yeah.
And
this long, and this land registry thing is not a problem for you now, but it's going to be a problem for the buyer when you've done the flip, which is what's holding you back. So.
Colin, is this GDV taking into consideration the garden as well?
Yeah, the valuer has seen that, but that's from our experience. The problem is that the valuer is working for the bridging company.
Yeah.
And that may not be, they don't perhaps that cautious. They just look at the whole overall picture. So it could impact some more. I mean, definitely he's assuming that these values include the gardens, the courtyards, gardens, yeah.
And with this problem with the land registry, I mean, it's a time problem, and therefore you might be a hybrid of having to rent it out for a period or use it as service for a period until you've resolved the problem, and then you can flip it.
Yeah.
To me, this is suggesting that it could be an equity finance arrangement might be a better way of dealing with that, given that you don't know how long it will take and you don't want to accrue too much interest.
Yeah.
So I know that maybe peer equity finance might be a good, joint venture sort of finance might be a good way of actually addressing this one.
Yeah.
But they have already 3 people involved, 3.
Well, that's my son.
Joint partners. No?
Yeah. My son and a builder.
Yeah.
Yeah, colleague. Yeah. I can't remember what the bridging amount is in the end now because it's been backwards and forwards so much.
Well, you can see that the interest on the project of 15,000 is, quite significant when put as a ratio to profit.
Yeah, and fees. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were to do that on an equity finance, you could wipe that off completely, and you don't have the worry of the time or the worst or best case scenario on that lender interest and fees. But of course, your equity partner needs to understand that, halfway through the flip, you might be able to, resolve your land registry thing and it finishes in 7 months, or it could be they've got to hold on in and you trade it for a year before it's sorted. Yeah. So really interesting that. Any questions from the team? This is in Nottingham, is it?
Yeah, suburb of Nottingham, one of the villages around Nottingham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you keeping this, Colin, or are you selling it? You're selling it, or
the plan is to flip it so that we've got our money to go again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got a question. just sort of cogitated on. With the fact that we're into very uncertain times, have you got a backup plan if the values don't pan out to flip it?
Well, only that we'll bridge it with, we'll buy to let it through, normal sources.
And then rent it?
Yeah, and then rent it, yeah. I can't remember when Sun did the figures, I think 850 and for the 3-bed and maybe 500, I think it was for the maisonette. So we'd have to leave our money in, but we'd get the bridging repaid and everything else repaid.
Yeah.
I have a question with regards to the other house that you didn't buy because of the not weight.
Yeah.
Everybody talk about like what a great opportunity because you can negotiate down. As soon as you propose a remediation plan, you will be able to get a mortgage. So why you didn't opt for that if it would have been a good opportunity to negotiate down the price, or it was too risky for you?
It was the lenders that wouldn't lend to us actually, so we couldn't afford to buy it in cash. It was a good cash earner. Everything, I can't remember what district of Mansfield it was now. It was nearly a year ago now, but it was the bottom wall where the Japanese nutweed was. But as soon as the valuer mentioned that the lenders ran a mile.
Yeah, no, I understand, but it's not true that if you put a plan to remediate the knotweed, they still accept it. They are okay with it.
Not generally. No, because this one had already started a 5-year program. I think it is. I think that was what it is, and it was Kent Reliance actually, one of the more risky lenders, and they wouldn't do it in the end.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good if you've got cash because, of course, you get the remediation relief as well. So it's a great opportunity, Japanese knotweed, for the right situations. But of course, it can be problematic if you have neighbours that have it, or and you're not in control of the whole of the problem. Yeah, really interesting stuff. That. Yeah. Good.
Rupert, what's the remuneration relief? Is it like 150% of the cost?
Remediation relief.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't got cash on. He was at our conference recently and he was telling us all about that. I don't know whether anybody. I believe that basically it's not going to cost you anything, and you might actually make a bit of money on it but it is a tax relief, so it's not a check you're going to get. But it will be mitigated against future tax bills.
Yeah, I think
you know a bit more about that.
I think I read it was 150% of the cost.
Yeah. And that's the case not just with Japanese knotweed, but also with, if you were buying a petrol station and there's contamination that needed to be dealt with, or anything like that. Any of these decontamination remedial works that you do, you fund the cost of them up front, but you will get the cost plus more back, subject to you making profits in the future and taking income in the future, and it will be knocked off your income tax. So again, a really good, for people with cash, really good opportunities there. Yeah.
And is that for when people have got limited companies?
Well, it doesn't really matter, Richard. The relief is there against your tax. So if you're owning it in the limited company, let's say you've got £100,000 of relief. If you're earning that in your limited company, then your limited company can make £100,000 of profit tax-free before it then starts paying tax. And that will effectively save you £19,000. But if you were a high rate taxpayer, a doctor, for example, and you had that in an LLP or in your own personal name, then that £100,000 is going to give you around £40,000 of relief. So it really depends on how much tax you're paying. And I fell short of that with this because I bought this building in a limited company and got my capital allowances. But of course, if I'd have bought it in my own name, or in an LLP, then those capital allowances would be relevant to my personal tax situation rather than to a company tax situation. So yeah, it really depends on your circumstances. And then on top of that, there is the additional challenge, if you like, which Cash spoke about a lot, which I love all this stuff, which is about structuring your limited company operation so that if you're making loads of money in your trading SA business, and you've got this capital or this remediation relief in a different investment business, if you structure those businesses correctly, you can actually then cross-fertilize the savings from one business to another.
Okay.
Yeah. Did I say Cash rather than Shaz?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really that clever in terms of tax and accounts. I wish I was.
Yeah, you're just cash rich. So moving on, we've got Ryan, and we've got I've not. Do you want to come off your screen share so I can see who's in the room? How do we just see who we've got? So Richard, you haven't gone yet, have you? You've
No, I've not gone yet.
Yeah. Would you like to go, and Ryan can finish off for the evening? Is that yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
So I'll just make you a co-host. There you go.
Where's my screen? A few to choose from. Oh no, that's not the one. Oh, got it. There we go. Can you see anything?
Yeah.
Okay. Where am I? Oh, hang on. Giving the game away. It's got a mind of its own. Right, let's try again. Right. Oh, that's better. I can see what I'm doing now. There we go. We've had a good mix, really good mix of projects. Been really interesting so far. I hope I can keep up to the high standard there. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about Flip, Flip that we did. We completed on last December. So this first slide is we were looking for a new project. So this is prior to us doing this Flip. So our last project was this 4-bed student HMO. I was running out of pictures, so I thought I'd put a picture of that. So the pictures you can see there on the right-hand side were a 4-bed HMO, which we just finished. So we needed another project to replace some of our depleted capital. Ideally, we were looking for 5 to 10 minutes away from a location. Usually we've been traveling. Normally my rule of thumb is about 20-25 minutes. But we do a lot of these projects because I'm a hands-on project manager, and my wife gets involved as well around a job share. You know, we decided it would be nice to do something that was really close. So our criteria changed a little bit. Weren't really quite sure what to do. We'd done a number of flips in the past, and we'd done a development in the past as well. So we're kind of open to a project. So I've tried to break this down a bit, Rupert. I know you're looking for some particular details. So I've had to think about it, and I've put this together. So normal criteria for us is to be able to add value in some way. I think that's fairly standard now, either adding a room or improving it in some fashion that will add its value. Of course, you know, the usual, buy the worst property on the best street. That's something we always tend to aim for. In actual fact, that HMO on the right there was probably one of those. It didn't look quite as nice as that. It was definitely the worst house on one of the nice streets. So that was a good example. And in this case as well, because we wanted it quite close, you know, we were looking, because I'm based in Nottingham, we were looking in specific areas, which was kind of tying our catchment down. So, you know, some good areas. We've done Wilford, West Bridgeford's a very nice area. Woolerton, where we live, or Beeston, it's quite nice. Beeston is kind of up and coming West Bridgeford. And I think for us, because we project manage, this is why I think, yeah, I find quite alien Cash's experience of not attending site. We're always on site because they project manage it. So from a finance point of view, I've got a good relationship with Angel Finances. We've used them for most of our projects so far. The rates on the Angel Finances are very good. So that was our preferred option. An alternative would have been bridging or a mix of both. And depending on what type of project we're looking for, because we've done a new build development in the past, we do have, I understand, I've never tried it, a development finance as an option. It would have been jumping through a few more hoops. So it was something I was willing to consider, but it wasn't, say, high on my list of preferences, but it was there as an option. And depending what type of project this would end up being, of course, if we're going to keep it for the longer term, kind of a backup scenario, if we couldn't sell it, well, it'll be a buy-to-let mortgage of some sort. And we'd still have to leave, I don't know, our short-term financing in place, but that was kind of a backup plan. So how we find projects, and I have done this, I've driven around, you know, often we're walking the dog or we're cycling around or we're in an area. I have printed some leaflets and dropped them through the doors. Had not a great deal of success, but not done a great number of drops. I have done one drop which was a very promising bungalow with a large garden behind it, so development opportunity there. I did a leaflet drop on that twice, and it took me a year before I actually managed to get my foot through the door. The particular gentleman there didn't like just anyone turning up at his door. It took some working on. I think our favourite really is agents. I don't know. I think a lot of people, investors, I get the feeling, don't like using agents, but that has worked well for us in the past, where we establish a good relationship with them. Good old Rightmove. I think most people do that. Word of mouth. So that's another way. You know, we go to quite a few investor meets. You know, PIN or PPNs, various other meetings as well. Word of mouth there. So that, you know, I think that kind of falls into networking as well. Okay.
Right.
Yep. If you've got any questions, by all means, shout out. So this is what we ended up buying. It's in Beeston. That was one of our areas. We bought it in January last year. Bought it for 205. It's a 3-bed corner semi. It wasn't really leaning over on the right-hand side. I don't know. The photographer didn't quite get that straight. But it has got some structural issues. I'll show you some of the pictures of that in a minute. So this was a probate property with structural issues on the back, quite typically. It's an off-market deal. So this had been on the market. And this was via a sourcer. So the first time we've ever used a sourcer to find one of our deals. Previous buyers dropped out. And the reason they dropped out is that they were keen to buy this, but they wanted planning permission. And they'd put planning permission in for a 3-bed, 3-story detached house. As you can see from the lower picture, it's not quite a double garage, but it's a garage and a half there. So it's got quite a bit of land on that left-hand side. Okay, let's find the next one. So this shows you a bit of an aerial view. I don't know. Can you see my cursor there, Rupert?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So this is the plot here. Ignore this over on the left-hand side. So this is the house. So this is number 70 there. and this is the existing garage. So it's a garage and a half there. So we've got, you know, there is space to potentially get a little development on there. And it, over on the right hand side, it shows you there again. So that's your plot. Early conversations with my sourcer reliably informed me that the neighbourhood development, dwelling down here, the owners were more than happy with the development going on the side there. That didn't turn out to be the case. So there we go. Okay, so the development side of it, existing 3-bed semi, they had planned. So this is the unit on the side, on the right hand side here. They were going to split the garden straight down, double parking both for the new unit and number 70 there as well. It failed on, I think it was 3 things in the end. One of the reasons was the impact of number 70 here. So it was affecting their amenities. Their loss of outlook, privacy and light, etc. And they also were talking about it would fail of the established character from the road scene, because quite a few of the houses down here were quite a bit bigger. And because they were looking at a new build for 3-story, 3-bed, they felt that, you know, well, they weren't happy with it and they failed it for those reasons. So they wouldn't support it. So,
do you think an appeal would have been successful?
Well, we were looking at it. Let me come on to the next slide. That brings me on nicely to my next slide. Thanks for that. So we were looking at it to change the development a little bit, to try and overcome some of those obstacles. I was talking with an architect in this case, and he's got good experience with the local authorities, Broxton Borough Council, and the planning department weren't particularly helpful. I don't know if any are, but I think he didn't have a good word to say about them. So what we were looking for is a possible option was to do a development on here. So for the actual house, the house with the structural issues, we'd do a basic refurb on it. So basic refurb on a 3-bed semi, just with 1 car parking space. So here, there's just a 1 car parking space. With this one, apparently the local authority were amenable for on-street parking. There's quite a bit of, you know, open road parking down here and across here and up the top. Incidentally, there is a very nice, quite a posh golf course which backs on just on the other pavement here. So there's easy access to quite a posh golf course. So it's quite a nice area. So if we were looking at a purchase 210, house refurbs 50, it's a little bit difficult to judge the sale value of a basic three bed. And we were talking to agents on this. We established a good relationship with the agents because obviously we need to sell these. We weren't buying it through an agent, but they gave us some guidance on these ranges here. So 280 to 300. So that would, you know, we'd want to turn that round fairly quickly, certainly within 6 months. And that would give us a profit between 20 and 40K. But then the new build, we'd have to redesign that. So we were looking at pulling the whole development forward and bring that in line. It looks like I brought it over the line there, over the adjacent property, but in actual, some of the houses further down there, their building line is further forward than this one. So we're looking at pulling that as far forward as we could, having 1 slot parking there plus road parking. So I think we've covered those bits up. Yeah, and also it'll help reduce the amenity impact on number 70 on the back here. The local authority's land supply, 5-year land supply is only 3.9. So, you know, that may help our argument if we were going to go through to planning. And my costs were based on, I think, moderate £1,500 per square metre, 60 square metres floor area, so yeah, about 100k. Finger in the air again, sale at 150, profit 75, but it'll run it over into, well, how long is planning going to take? Could sell it in 2020, or, you know, worst case scenario, it might even be a 3-year project. So gross profit looking at 95 to 115 for 2 years. Okay, so the option 2, so option 1 was the development with a basic refurb. The option 2 is to do a high-end refurb on the property, and we'll pull a kitchen extension out the back, include all the niceties. So bearing in mind the potential area, it's nice near a nice golf course. It's near Beeston Town Centre as well, so it's easy walking distance. So, you know, wine cellar. Oh yeah, it had a cellar. That was great. I like that bit. A wine store down there, south-facing garden, which is ideal. We'd also look at not extending into the attic because trying to keep costs down, but we'd look at certificate of lawful development for the 4th bedroom in the attic. So we'll potentially look at getting all the architect's plans put in place and some costs. And so house refurb approximately 100k. So that would give us a gross profit of 65 to 70k, and we could sell it in 2019, which would give us a 6 months to 9 month profit project. Have it refurbed in 6 and sold by 9. So in and out in the same year. Oh, but incidentally, I think you can see the cracking right from the roof. This is structural issues, and this is why it had to be bought with cash. The crack all the way down through the window and all the way down here. This back end, this back corner of the house was starting to fall away, and that's really mainly down to all the drains that run up the side of the house there. Okay, so summary. So summary for new build, would need to amended planning permission. Bit of a question mark on how successful we might be on that. The financing, I know I did prefer angel financing, and we do get a good rate on that, but it's kind of pushing the angel financing that I could get. So we'd need worst case scenario 260, but you could argue if we sold the basic refurb, we'd get some income back out of that, which could offset some of the costs. But do you want to really sell a house when you've got a development down the bottom of the garden? I don't know. It's a bit of an unknown quantity. As I mentioned before, developer finance could have been a good way forward. We've not done it, so it would need that extra effort to go through there, jump through the hoops. I think one of the things I'm just a bit wary of with developer finance is all the hoops you have to jump through before they start releasing funds for your development. I'm not used to being tied down and having to do that. Compromise plot size. Yeah, it's not ideal, but you know, is it good enough? Yeah, planning uncertainty as well. I think that was one of the big ones. So then the option 2, the high-end refurb. Yeah, I think, you know, considering the area it's in and the neighbourhood, we thought it was really a bit more in keeping with, because it's about matching your end product with what you believe that market is going to be. So we could turn it around quickly and get reasonable profit potential. If I'm doing a flip, I'm looking at getting a minimum of 20% profit out of it. We could then move on to another project, and that project might even have a better plot size. So that estimated a gross profit 65 to 70, and we could be done and dusted last year. So that's one we chose. We chose to do the high-end refurb. Oh.
And are you going to demolish the garage and put a new garage on there?
Do you want to see a bit more?
Yeah.
I could show you what we did if that's of interest.
Yeah. Is it all done?
Yeah.
Oh, it's all done. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got to hear the story.
Oh, right. Bear with me a sec. Let's try and get hold of this. Right. Right, here we go. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. Right. So this is all done and dusted. These are all the figures. You're going to like these figures. Well, you like figures. I know you like figures. Right. So yeah, it's all done and dusted. That's the finished product. Didn't knock down the garage. So we bought it 4th of Jan 2019 for 205. Really nice location. As you say, the front windows here are facing out to a golf course. It is the kind of the side fence of the golf course. You can't see much of it, but the golf course is there. And all the kids walk up through the jitty or alley, or wherever you're from, up here. So it's really nice for the kids walking down here. South facing garden, detached garage. I think, yeah, we covered that bit there. So yeah, refurb started in April and we finished it in September. So it was 5 months, we did well with that. You can see the extension. We put an extension on the back here. We had agents viewing on Saturday the 28th. Lovely couple from London were one of the groups viewing, and they put their offer in on, I think it was the Monday or Tuesday, and we revised offer, which we accepted. Agents recommended marking it at 380. We accepted 375, which was about I think what we'd estimated before. So refurb everything, refurb, SDLT, legal or fees, obviously no tax on this, but all the other fees was 110. So that was about within budget too. Finance, so that would have been angel financing for over the period right up to sale. So I think, don't quote me, I think that might have been 9 months we went on that finance there. Total spend was 315, profit on sale for 42. So just made me 20%. so that worked out well. Yeah. I can show you some of the details. Yeah. So there we go. Some of the bad bits. These are the issues. I had a good little cellar. You could easily stand up in it, but a lot of damp down there, as you can see, all down the walls here. We've got some steel girders. This is the floor underneath the bottom of the stairs in the hall. We had a lot of cellar corrosion we had to deal with here. This is the back of the house, the bathroom. As you can see, all the cracks. So this far rear corner of the house is starting to drop away. As you can see, all the cracks through the window there. All this brickwork needed to be taken out and made good. So all this floor had dropped as well in this top bottom corner. So all the floor had to come up and all the floor had to be leveled again. Plenty of wall cracks. There's lots of cracks. This is the landing, not the hall, as it says at the top there. So lots of cracks down here, across there and down there. Attic cracks as well. You can see some of the repairs that were done here. And we use obviously a structural engineer giving us advice on this, and he gave us sign off. He's got indemnity cover. You can see this is one of the latest photos. You see all the cracking on the bricks. This is the gable end wall where it's been made good, and the horizontal bars are what's called the heli bars, which have been grouted in place. So it's a matter of cutting out the mortar joints and grouting them in and then making good again. So it's stitching for bricks. Front bedroom wall, we had a lot of damp here. That was on the front, and the trees out the front there is the golf course, you can see. But that was an easy solution in the end. That was a roofing issue. And this was that gable end wall here. So a builder needed scaffolding up here, and we had to use helibar stitching all the way up right to the top to repair that. One surprise.
Originally from the kitchen.
Say again?
Was that a stove chimney from the kitchen originally?
Originally, yeah.
Yeah. Because of course that could be a source of damp, which you know, I'm not sure if that contributed to the falling away, but yeah.
Originally, that would have been the stove kitchen. It wasn't there
Yeah.
when we bought it. I think that had been changed before.
Mm.
So one surprise we didn't expect, got asbestos on the garage roof.
Mm.
Oh dear. Indicative signs of asbestos is moss growing on the top.
Mm.
Quite fragile, generally the colour. So that could have severely impacted our profits. You could have been talking, well, £10,000 to get rid of that safely. Fortunately, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I've got a family member that's in the asbestos business. So he did us an almighty favour, and he dealt with that for us. He managed to get a company in to take it away and do it safely. This is the only picture I had for the ground floor kitchen. That at some stage prior to us buying, somebody had taken out the chimney, and this is downstairs, but they hadn't supported it above. So an additional cost of the project was we needed to put a beam across, and on the right hand side you can see the beam, and the bricks are now built up to hold the chimney stack up in the bedroom. We won't want that falling down.
Can I just, last year when I bought in Nottingham, after the tenants had gone in and everything, HMO, I had a phone call to say bricks are falling through the ceiling of the kitchen. And it was a chimney we didn't even know existed. And,
oh no.
Yeah, and so exactly your point there.
Yeah, yeah. So a few befores and afters. I whiz through these, it'll give you a flavour of what it's like. Befores and afters, the wonky picture on the left. We paid extra for the agents we were selling with, which advised us on some of the initial costs. We paid extra for some extra special photos, but this one on the right is one of them. It's just washed out all the colours. I wasn't very impressed with them at all. So yeah, one on the left hand side. I whiz through these before and after at the back. So we did an extension on the back there, patio doors. The side of the house, re-gravelled all of this, kept the door, new roof, and we used one of the rubber roofing compounds for the top of the roof of the garage. That worked really well. Before and after kitchen. Yeah. Put an island unit there. I know Shane has installed these downdraft extractors. That was nice. We put a quartz worktop in a downdraft extractor. That was a nice thing to play with. Nice feature. And yeah.
How is that venting out though? Because it's in the middle of the kitchen.
Yeah, well spotted. That vents internally. It vents through a charcoal filter.
Really?
Now, all the work we do is through building control, obviously, and because that is in the existing part of the kitchen, we weren't required to externally vent it. We could internally vent it. Now,
doesn't it just make the smells just stay in the kitchen?
Well, the theory is if you use a carbon filter, that helps reduce the smells,
right? And
it helps take the moisture out. It wasn't my preferred option. It was very difficult. It was very difficult because that's a concrete floor, and is it concrete floor? No, apologies. It's a wooden floor underneath that. But it's a concrete floor if you went straight back out, and it's a concrete floor if you went left to it as well. So it would have been difficult to get a vent out underneath. So I did compromise a little on that, and we went for carbon filters. Left some spares in the cupboard for the new owners. Induction hob. Yeah, so that's the garden before and after. How's the utility room, which was we bricked up the back door, so utility room is kind of here on the right. The door would have been where the sink is.
Put is that Magnet, toilet, by the way? Because I know you're an LNPG member.
Yes, it was Magnet Kitchen.
They're great, aren't they?
Yeah, they're good. Yeah, really good. Yes, and we put a more expensive worktop in that one. We put quartz worktop in because we were pushing for a higher end refurb, higher end solution. So downstairs toilet is essential in a family home because that's what our target market was. So this is the front room before and after. we've put those logs in fireplaces before, and they do really have quite a nice effect. When we sold one of our other houses on the flip, the owners were desperate to buy the logs off us because they look so good.
And did you stage it with a staging company?
No, we staged it ourselves.
Right.
We reuse quite a bit of our staging furniture that we've got. We really limit on storage though, and so but we try and turn over as much as we can. And we also, when we're staging, we borrow things from our own home. So there are a few items reused. We have to manage without for a bit. But in this case, my daughter was buying a house in the area as well. So we ended up buying she bought new sofas through this project. So she ended up with the sofas in the end. So we moved them on. But yeah, we do our own staging. Okay, and cellar. Before and after, saying it was a bit damp down there, so increased the airflow. We painted a tanking solution on the walls, added extra air vents at the top. Burglar alarm, cut out, new consumer unit. Bathroom, old and new. Colour's not quite right again. Yeah, bedrooms. Yeah, back bedroom. Small bedroom. We wanted to get a bed in that, so that's how we ended up putting it. Okay, and that's it. That was before and after. Okay.
Really interesting. I think it's worth mentioning as well. You got your 20% profit out of that. You know, January to September, wasn't it, of last year? I think if we wind the clock back to January of last year.
Yeah.
It's when you're talking about a story in the past and people are looking at that and they think that's what I want to do, you know, it's so easy for these people to do that. What you can't illustrate in a slideshow is the element of risk that you're taking at the point of actually entering into these projects. You know, it's very difficult to quantify the risk because it's an emotion, isn't it, Richard? But at the end of the day, we were facing Brexit. You know, everything was in disarray. People were saying about values going to be dropping. We didn't know what the hell was going on there. You know, and I personally, you know, when people were coming to me and talking about, you know, strategies, I'd say now is not the time to do flips. The reality. The fact is that the market was kind, buoyant. I wouldn't say that much of your 20% in that time period was market increase. There might have been a little bit of market increase, but in that short period of time, it wouldn't have been massive. More seasonal market increase than anything else. And of course, if somebody had said, if you'd have started a flip in May of this year to sell today, you're absolutely mad. You know, the risk you'd have been taking on back in May. But of course, as we know now, that the number of new instructions that solicitors are getting today is going through the roof. You know, people are buying like crazy at the moment. So it's all very well when you historically show these things, and I think that what's impressive, you know, what you don't get the credit for is the fact that you know the level of risk that you took at the time of actually going into the project.
Yeah, Brexit was an issue. Well, was something we considered, definitely. Remember talking about it, and then you know you gauge everyone else's opinion. You know, ask around and see what other people are doing, and it was very much, well, what can we get on and do? So it was a matter of getting on and doing what we normally do.
Yeah.
With the hope that, you know, there will be someone out there that will be looking for what we're selling. So
yeah, and of course you're always got that second exit, you know, in the back of your mind just in case. Yeah, brilliant. That was fantastic. Thanks. Any questions from Richard before we move on to Ryan?
Yes, Richard, I have one. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I love the doggy. You mentioned that there's 380 GDV, final valuation. It was almost a recommendation from the estate agent, and that's the price that you put for selling.
Yeah.
Did you get it evaluated? Did you get evaluation? Did you get evaluation to really see exactly what was the value of the house?
We didn't get an official valuation. No, we worked very much on talking with the agents, because it was very much because we ended up finding a really good agent. There's a few agents in Beeston. I think there's about 4 agents. We went round all of them, and one of them, Bairstow Eaves, stood out really well. They were head and shoulders above the others, and they often say if you go into an agent, you don't talk to the person at the front of the agent, you find the person at the back. And we found the person at the back more or less by accident. A really nice guy, and he was a valuer, and he was switched on. He knew his market. He knew what houses were out there for sale, what houses had been sold. And we found, talking with him and talking through some of our ideas, he came up with so many comparables that gave us confidence to say, well, actually, this is our kind of ballpark. So it was really the good relationship with the agents we relied on for that.
No, it's because sometimes you just cannot rely on the agent, really. They give you an inflated price, and sometimes it's very difficult. It's better really to have an official valuation, but you're lucky to get a good value within the agency, the agent. Okay.
We've had it with other agents. We tend not to go for overinflated prices. We go for the prices that we feel about right as well. So yeah, you're right. It can work, and but unfortunately, I think it has worked in the past for us. So.
Thank you,
Richard.
Yeah,
great deal.
Yes,
fantastic. It looks really nice as well. I know that part of Beeston, so.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you did well on that.
Yeah.
You mentioned there's an adjusted offer. Did they kind of increase their offer or reduce it?
Let me how much it was. I think they ended up dropping it down a bit. I think they were. It was the other way. I think they dropped down about 10k, and then we compromised in the middle. I think that's what it was.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're actually moving up from London, are they?
Yes. Yeah. They'd already they've got family in the area. Really nice young couple with one child, and he was originally from the area, from Beeston, so he knew the area really well, and he could work remotely. He was working in IT, and he wanted an office, and they were looking to relocate up here, so it worked out perfectly for them. It was within a stone's throw of one of the parents within the area, and so he could work from up here. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. What do you think of the prices at the moment? Prices are kind of going a bit silly, aren't they? I think.
Yes. That's what I've heard. Is certainly the areas I've been looking in. There's been, I think most people have seen actually, house prices have inflated considerably. How long it's going to last for, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
31st of March 21, isn't it, Richard?
That long?
Richard has actually told us when the crash is starting.
Oh, really? Is that when the stamp duty comes back?
Yeah, the way I look at it, we've borrowed next season's market, and we've bought it this side of March. So the payback starts on the 1st of April. With a high interest rate. But who knows? I've sold 3 properties this month, not completed on any, they're not exchanged yet on any, but just basically agreed the deals. One of them was 50k over asking price. One of them was 20k over asking price, and one of them was 15k over asking price.
Wow. Are these existing buy-to-lets that you're getting rid of? Or?
2 are HMOs sold with tenants in situ. One of the buyers wants tenants in situ, the other buyer wants vacant possession, but is realistic and needs stock, so they're going to buy it with tenants in situ. And the other one is my residential. Yeah. So yeah, the market is just so buoyant at the moment. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Does that mean you're leaving the property investment market?
No. I mean, I've still got a few left behind.
Right.
I think at the peak of my enthusiasm was probably 2016 or probably end of 2016. I probably had about 45. I think I'm down to about 24 now.
Wow.
Yeah. So no, I've got to keep myself busy somehow. Brilliant. So I've co-hosted you, Ryan. So if you could close the evening for us, that'd be fantastic.
It looks as if everyone else has been a little bit more professional than I have in producing PowerPoints, and I didn't realise there was homework prior to.
It wasn't stipulated. Yeah.
So, can people, if I share my screen, no? Can you talk me through how to share screen, Rupert?
Yeah, so you're a co-host. So down at the bottom of your screen, you should have in the middle of the ruler bar of the menu bar there, the share screen option.
Yep. And there's just
desktop. Click on that. It gives you options to share the whole screen, which will bring up everything that's on your computer, or you can choose which window to share. Okay. And then once you're sharing, it'll have a little sort of green border to the screen you're sharing, so you can see what you're sharing.
Oh dear me. Desktop, open system preferences.
I'm not sure you need to
will not be able to record the contents of your
just
screen.
Literally in your Zoom window, there's this share screen option at the bottom.
Yep, I can see that.
So if you click on that with the up arrow.
Yep.
And then you'll come up, you should see a number of choices. One being everything on your desktop.
Yes.
And then the others being the individual things that you've got open.
So if I just share my desktop.
Yeah, you've done it. Well done.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. So so a smidgen of background. This comes off the back of me just over 2 years ago buying an industrial estate in Sheffield that was already partially tenanted but also extremely run down. So me and my business partner came to the end of that project a couple of months ago, having been delayed a little bit by COVID, just for the finishing off. And me and a pal saw this probably around Christmas last year, but didn't really think much of it. And we thought it was a little bit overpriced. But we noticed in sort of May, it was, late May, it was still hanging around. So we went to view it, put an offer in, and a week or two later it got accepted. So that was early June. And the vendor faffed around no end, and so much so that we only, bearing in mind we bought it effectively for cash, we only ended up buying it last Tuesday. Yeah, so a long drawn out process. So this is it. It was on the market for 475, and we ended up buying it for 410. I think part of the reason was I'll sort of go through. I'll go through this in a little bit more detail, but I think the vendor's agent messed the advertising up somewhat, and I think that allowed us to get a fairly good deal. So this was the front cover of their brochure. The Rightmove advert has now been removed, but the Rightmove advert was no better. If you look here, it says that it's 17,000 and a bit square feet. Now I've measured it, and it's actually just shy of 19,000 square foot. So they sort of missed the best part of 2,000 square foot. If I switch over No, not that one. Let me just bear me a second. I'm going to try and show you the sort of the aerial shot. There we go. So that's it there. So the view that you were just looking at previously is looking from there that way. So looking at that front elevation there. And internally, that's the layout. So again, down at the bottom here, you got the road. Could everyone see my cursor?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so this is the front elevation here, and this is how the property's laid out at the minute. So it's a few relatively large, but also relatively open plan units. So what we are planning to do is divide it up. So what we realised from the units that we've done in Sheffield is that there is a massive demand for small industrial units across the country, and yeah, these things tend to rent out for really good rates per square foot, especially these really little tiny ones here, like all these along here. These are sort of give or take about 500 square foot. And there are other units in the area that are renting out at £8 per square foot plus VAT. Now this property isn't VAT elected, which is hurting us on the refurb costs, but it means effectively we can charge £9.50 a square foot and still be undercutting the competition. And all that money, all that extra 20% goes in our back pocket rather than to the Chancellor. Who obviously will be giving it away for years to come, I imagine, in terms of COVID, if he carries on at his current rate. So basically, we're going to be splitting all of these red lines of the new walls that we're going to be sticking up. So we've got about 6,500 square foot of new wall going up, which a few builders have been rubbing their hands at. So that's as it stands at the minute, and that's going to be the finished product, hopefully. So we've had the electricians in for the last week and a week and a half, and the builders are starting on Monday, building us a little toilet block around here, which we need for building regs, obviously. And the week after, then they're going to be starting on all these dividing walls down here, and hopefully allowing us to get the units on the market. So in terms of the numbers, it's like I said, we bought it for 410. And the refurb is probably just going to tip north of about 200,000. There's a lot of sort of big works to do. Everything from upgrading the power supply with Northern Power Grid, which in itself is 17 grand, just to get some increased capacity on the electrics. And then 60 grand on the electrics themselves. A further 60 grand on the walls and the bogs and a few other bits and bobs, CCTV, etc. Cladding's £15,000, £12,000 on these new roller shutters down here and what have you. So yeah, so we'll be in it for just over £600,000 by the time we're done. Probably sort of closer to 625-ish, 630 by the time we've added the stamp duty and the legals and what have you. And we are estimating a rent of about 150-ish, £150,000 a year, which we'll sort of work it out. Now, I have said I've capitalised that at a very, I believe, a conservative yield of about 11%. So if you sort of divide that by 0.11, that's hopefully going to be our
really, really strong.
gross development value, which is about 1.35 million. So just over sort of doubling our money. And this is one that we intend to keep and just rent out and collect the rent. But the nice thing is with these is that you get people on you typically going for 3-year leases, internal repairing leases on these industrial type properties, and therefore you can plop somebody in, and for the most part just leave them there for 3 years before you have to sort of converse with them again. We've got a managing agent in place who's very good. They chase all the rents. There's no service charge or anything, so it's fairly simple on that side of things. Yeah, that's about it really. I just thought I'd keep it nice and nice, short and sweet, but just sort of show people what
save the best till last. Wow.
What you can do on the commercial side. There's no sort of if but sort of maybe as to whether it's going to get a commercial valuation because it's a commercial property, and therefore, the nice thing is with these particular deals as well is that when it comes to refinancing, we can pull all our money out without question, because I've already arranged finance with Cambridge and Counties Bank, and they will lend up to they will lend 100% of purchase and renovation costs. So it's basically we get all our money back out and we can go again. That's subject to a maximum of 70% loan to value, I understand, but we're going to be nowhere near that anyway. So we're going to be sort of around about 50%, between 45 and 50% loan to value anyway. So we're only limited by how much we spend.
So how are you financing until you've got it tenanted, until you can get that from Cambridge and Council?
In terms of the purchase, we got an 80% bridge.
Yeah.
So the bridger put in 330, obviously just on a traditional debt basis. We put in 80 of our own money, and then the renovation is our own money as well.
Would you be happy to share the rate you've got on the bridge?
It's just 1% a month.
Yeah. So
it's probably not the cheapest, but the nice thing is this guy's very flexible. There were no other fees with the exception of paying his lawyer, which was 900 quid, I think, or including the VAT. I did my own valuation, which because I've worked with him for over a decade. So he knows who I am and what I do. So, there were no valuation fees or anything to pay. And he's very flexible in terms of repayment. So,
yeah, a complete arm's length bridge through a broker or whatever, you're looking at about 1.25. So you're not paying as much as that. I think with the experience of doing what you're doing and having this finance CV that you build up that goes behind you, that you can say, well, this is what I've done on bridges in the past and so on and so forth. Then you can start to look for peer lenders, just normal individuals with money, in which case you could probably get as low as about 6, averaging around sort of 8%. But that's something to look forward to in future projects. How are you heating it?
Heating?
Yeah.
Oh, don't mention that word. We don't talk about heating. Yeah, no, the building regs would go balmy. No fixed heating because it messes the EPCs up.
Right.
If you start putting fixed heating into an industrial property, it just blows the EPCs like down to an F or a G.
Right.
So the trick with the algorithm is to not have any fixed heating in an industrial property. So you can have the most inefficient heating system in the world. You can have a log burning fire. You just have a pile of coal in the middle of the unit. But as long as it's not fixed to a wall, it doesn't count in the EPC algorithm.
Yeah.
And therefore it doesn't, because all the units are being redone with LED lights, etc. The property will become quite, on paper, efficient. even though the users may very well have gas blowers and all that sort of jazz.
From a planning perspective, what's your range of tenants in terms of their operation?
It can be because the unit was B2 and B8, so that's general industrial and storage and distribution. That's what we're keeping it as.
And do you think most people are using it for storage then?
Or general industrial, yeah. So that can be woodworking, metalworking, anything like that.
I used one of these sort of yellow box style storage companies back in 2010, 2011, and it was in Leicester. And it was designed for domestic storage.
Is this like a big yellow storage?
Yeah, one of those, I reckon a third of it was rented out by BT, and they were just using it as a sort of a local hub to store their equipment while their people were doing different repairs around the city and everything. And they were just coming, and there were BT vans all over it all the time. There were always BT vans coming and going. Obviously, a very, very inefficient way for BT to, spend their money. But a large corporate like that, solving a problem, needs to be in Leicester for all this time, and it was just paying short-term storage fees to this yellow box. It's amazing when you do something like this, the kind of good deals you can strike, and you might want to consider whether or not you hold some of them for yourself and do, short-term storage yourself from them.
It's management though. That would be for me personally. I like to get in, add value, bang it to the agent, and give it. Because I've already got another project lined up in solicitor to start for January, in Penistone in Sheffield. So I don't want to be tied up doing things, and at the end of the day, I'm a surveyor, so I do enjoy surveying, so I can't spend my time sorting keys out and I've lost my key, can you come and let me into my big yellow storage box? Or whereas I've helped a pal move house last year sometime. He used a big yellow storage in Hillsborough in Sheffield, near where I live. So I went to help him take all his stuff there for a few weeks and what have you. And they've got on-site security 24/7, and it's an operation, not. That's not something I want. I want to be a landlord, and that's it.
How does insurance work?
To keep it simple, that's sort of what I sort of referred to earlier. We only work on an internal repairing only basis, so we insure the entire building, and the insurance is just built into the rent. Obviously, the contents is the tenant's responsibility.
But if the building burnt down as a result of your, well, I don't know about fault, but if the building burnt down, obviously would the tenants be then claiming their contents against your building insurance? Is that how it works?
No, they'd be claiming against their own contents.
They'd have to go to their own contents. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I imagine if it was something that was faulty with our building, let's say the electrics were dodgy.
Yeah, there might be some.
I imagine there would be a counterclaim against our insurance from their insurance.
I think that's where I was coming from. Yeah. So, but you just need to insure the building. You pay your premium, and then the tenants are responsible for insuring their own affairs within that. Okay.
The reason we do that, and it's the same reason as why we don't run a service charge, is because with larger tenants like Screwfix and Toolstation and all those types of big box occupiers, there's a property department behind it, and they understand it, and it's something they expect, and it's but all these smaller tenants, they want a single number. How much am I going to be paying out per month? That's it. That's all they want.
And had the vendor claimed capital allowances?
No, we tried to claim it, but we couldn't because they'd only owned it for a short period of time, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. But you will be able to claim capital allowances on the money that you spend?
Yes, on the money we're spending, yes, but not on the money that was sort of tied up in the building.
But that's quite substantial still, isn't it? Did you say 400,000?
No, 200.
200,000. Okay.
That's how much money we're spending. Yeah.
Okay, so you'll get a fairly big capital allowances claim out of that, though, won't you?
Yes, yeah, but like I say, we had two firms look at it from the purchase side of things,
Yeah.
and we couldn't claim capital allowances on the pre-existing building. But yes, we can claim capital allowances on the stuff we're spending now.
And is there any remediation work at all, or not?
Not land remediation. No, there's a bit of asbestos in the roof, and a few bits of asbestos here and there.
Yeah.
We're leaving the roof where it is because, quite frankly, we can't afford to
change it.
And it would just stop the whole project for a couple of months.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just
And have you found a buyer for the sheds?
Oh, the sheds. No, luckily they got moved. Yeah, so sorry for anyone who wasn't in on that little joke. It was a shed manufacturing company, and about 10 days before we bought the place, there was still about 1,000 sheds in the property. I worryingly came onto this forum again about a few weeks ago, and asked if anyone who knew anything about sheds, because we genuinely thought the vendor was just going to dump them on us at the 11th hour and say take it or leave it, and we'd have had 1,000 sheds to. But the problem was what we found out after a couple of days after. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, Rupert, but I got my uncle to come, who works in the sort of outdoor garden, world, as it were. The vast majority of them weren't complete sheds. They had bits missing, like roofs and walls and floors missing. So you imagine like you've got your constituent elements. Almost all of them had something missing. So we'd have just been left with a pile of wood that we couldn't do anything with. So it went from sort of moderately concerning, we can probably, worst case scenario, open it up and let the gypsies come and take 1,000 sheds, to shit, we just got a pile of wood. What we're going to do with it all?
Bonfire night coming on.
Yeah, but obviously they've got these like felt roofs and glass, so they were like playhouses with glass windows, and so it's not as simple as just burning it either. And also the treatment that they use this like dip, and it's toxic. So it'd have been an interesting conversation with the fire officer when all this purple smoke starts going up everywhere, and
Brilliant. Wow, I'm so pleased you've come in at the end there. That's just mind blowing. Any questions from anybody there?
Yeah, hi Ryan. Just wondering, how do you gauge demand for something like this before you buy it?
Like I said, I've got another unit in Attercliffe in Sheffield, which is it's about 10 miles away. It's a little bit closer to my house, so we've had that for 2 years. The demand there has been mental. It's just been absolutely balmy. Okay. So that unit's about twice as big in terms of lettable floor space. So that's about 38,000 square foot in terms of rentable floor space. So this one's about half the size. But if I had another 3 or 4 of those units in Sheffield, I would be able to rent all the units out.
Wow. So, for example, what does someone do with an 8 meter squared unit? It's kind of just storage space, or
8 meter squared.
Yeah, is that one 8 unit 14? Is that 8 meter squared, or is that
just
the wall? Unit 14.
No, I think that's linear.
Oh right,
yeah, they're all linear meters. Sorry.
So it's 8 by 6.
It is 8 by 6.
About 50 meters. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to provide lighting, electricity, and a communal toilet.
Yeah, that's it, mate. That's just hang on. Let me try and get so I can see people's faces. Yeah, so that's it. That's all it is. In terms of what we provide in there, it's just either LED strip lights or like circular halo lights, depending on how whether it's high bay or low bay. A 3-phase consumer unit, and just a double metal socket underneath the consumer unit.
Right.
And then just a roller shutter, which is fuse hardwired back to the consumer unit, and that's it.
So what would a typical tenant, say for Unit 14, be doing?
Yeah. So at the Attercliffe property, where, like I say, we've got 46 tenants in there. We've got 2 units vacant at first floor, which are like little offices. But in terms of the type of tenants we've got at Attercliffe, we've got bakers, we've got a lot of car storage, car repair garages, a good few joinery workshops, blacksmiths. We've got somebody who repairs welding equipment. We've got somebody who does specialist filtration. I don't exactly know what it is, but some sort of filter. It makes filters, basically. We've got a couple of ladies who make their own soya milk. They've moved in recently. We've got somebody who makes his own fresh fish bait. Never ever move into next door to somebody who makes their own fresh fish bait.
I'm surprised you let him in.
It is vile to a degree that I cannot even begin to express in words. Yeah, crab and krill in the middle of summer.
I bet he's popular with the others.
Yeah. So how do you manage the access to the communal toilets? Is it just a shared key that everyone has, or?
We're just going to put a pin pad.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Just
And
keeps
then
it simple.
you have to send clean in once a week or something.
Yeah. Just going to let the managing agents just send a cleaner in once a week. So yeah, in terms of accessing the site, it's just all key fob. So the key fob links to the electric gate, which we need to install, and then that links to their roller shutter, which they can just they just sort of sends their roller shutter up and down at demand.
And do you allocate parking, or is it just shared with? No.
Not on this site anyway, because there's not enough space to allocate any parking. But even on the previous site, where technically there is, there's not in. Yeah, the weird thing is that you tend to find that people use the site at different times, and it becomes a really inefficient use of space.
Mm.
So if you start allocating parking, you might end up with one, or if you're lucky, 2 car parking spaces per unit. Whereas you'll tend to find that some people use the units in the early morning and then go out to site, and then their 2 car parking spaces might be free all day. Whereas again, we've got at the Attercliffe site, which is obviously very well established, is we've got somebody who uses a Muay Thai gym, for example. So at the first floor, he runs a Muay Thai boxing gym. So he runs one class in the morning at 10 o'clock between 10 and 11. So he's got 1 or 2 clients who come in for that session. And then at 6 o'clock at night till 9 o'clock, all his clients pile in. Whereas everyone else has gone home by that point, or the vast majority of people have. So, his clients would have nowhere to park. So what we've said is just a free for all, and it works. It's sort of like you always get somebody complaining because somebody's parked like a prat, and then they've left a massive van overhanging 5 car parking spaces, and you have to go and speak to them. But broadly speaking, it's a sort of a self-managing.
Do the managing agent, would they provide a security service if it was needed?
They do have an FM division, so they would provide it at an extra. They wouldn't provide it free of charge. No. But they do have the ability. They have sort of tried to upsell me, so to speak, to an on-site manager. I
mean, if you could offer that once you've got it tenanted, you could offer it to the tenants and see what they come back with, and if it.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, it's not. You always tend to find that you either have to impose it or not. Asking them is never a good option.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Because you'll always get somebody who doesn't want it, and then if you do then later come to impose it, they'll say, "Well, I'm not paying for it. I don't want it."
Yeah.
Whereas it's the guy who's storing his really expensive Rolls Royces, that really wants it because he's never on site. Whereas the bakers, all right, might lose a bit of flour, but.
Yeah. Do you happen to know anybody that deals in shipping containers? Because I'm looking for some.
I don't know anybody personally. There are a lot of companies around these because it's all industrial estates.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, but I don't know anybody personally.
Okay, not to worry. I just came to mind as you were talking about it.
Ryan, so the rent, did you say it's £9-ish per square metre? Is that per month?
It's per square foot.
Oh, per square
and that's per annum.
per year. Wow. Okay. That's good. I love it. It's like it's an industrial HMO.
It is. Yeah. So that is effectively it. So the other reason I sort of know about the demand and everything is my background is I'm a chartered surveyor. So there is a phrase that's come even to my attention quite recently. It's MLIE, multi-let industrial estates, MLIE. And yeah, it is effectively HMOs on steroids because they're really, really management light. But yes, so you just buy a big box, and providing you can carve it up nice and adequately, it does work.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's really exciting, I have to say. That's great.
Brian, sorry, very interesting. Did you say it's all bills included?
Not all bills included, no.
Oh right, so they're responsible for electricity.
Yeah, so the way we work is that there's a head meter that we pay for. So we pay for the electric for the whole site to whoever whichever supplier we end up going with, and then there's a sub meter in every unit that has a little SIM card within it, and there's a it just pings out to the firm that we use. And then the tenants get an automated bill. So we get charged at about 15 pence per kilowatt hour. But obviously our meter's going around like the clappers because there's 18 people pulling off our electricity. And then we charge 22 pence a unit to the tenants. And that just about pretty much covers the standing charge that we have to cop for. And it also covers the communal lighting and like the bogs and the hand dryers and things like that. So we don't really make any money off the electric charges, but we break even quite neatly.
Okay, what about things like the internet? They're all responsible if they need it to get it.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So we pay for the water, but again, that's just a standard charge. So it's £400 or £500 a year, basically. So
that's a good question, Sarah. That really is, because with 4 and 5G coming in, it's going to put a premium value on a site like this that has good 4 and 5G coverage, wouldn't it? Against one that might, not have a very good mobile data coverage.
Yeah, I mean, what we're doing, and we were advised this by some guys from BT who we just happened to come across on the day we were buying the property. They were doing a survey on just around the corner. Yeah. And they advised us to ask, I can't remember what it's called exactly. I've got it in my notes somewhere, but top and bottom of it is like a little box. So BT will come in, if we need to phone BT at some point after all the dust settles. BT Openreach will come and install a box into the most accessible part of the building. And then what happens is every time one of the tenants wants some broadband, the Openreach engineers will simply work from that box and sort of trail the cable round to their units, just so we've not got cables running here, there, and everywhere. It can all be done relatively neatly from one of these sort of mega boxes.
The other option you've got, and it's becoming, with 5G, it's becoming more and more of a good option, because EE charge £20 a month for a unlimited data SIM, and there are organisations, you can Google them, and I know this from the motorhome because one of them is specific for motorhomes. It's called Motorhome Wi-Fi. And what they do is they put what looks a bit like a sort of a motorhome satellite, a smaller version of a motorhome satellite aerial on the roof of your motorhome. And that just basically is a very, very good receiver of the mobile phone signal. And then it cables into a very small little router, which holds the SIM card. And then you've got Ethernet cables coming from the router, but it's also a Wi-Fi router. So you use your iPad and you go on Wi-Fi from your iPad to this router, but actually all the signal is coming from the mobile data, and that's £20 a month. So the individuals could use that and do it and stick it through the roof or out the window and on the wall or whatever. Or there might be a much more commercial solution, which could be used for the whole building, with lots of cables coming off it into each unit.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to get into the
I understand that.
Where we're providing services, because again, you get the guy who's storing cars.
Yeah.
And if we say to him, well, we want 20 quid a month for broadband, he's just going to go, no way I'm paying.
I absolutely agree with that. But I think initially what I'm thinking about from what Sarah said is that if I'm driving around and I find one of these sites, it's going to be quite an important point to get your mobile phone out and see what the signal is like there. Given that
exactly.
Will not automatically have broadband in it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just another question to do with the unit. So somebody comes along, but say they need specialist ventilation, they have to then invest the money and get it up to, the building regs. I don't know if you're a car sprayer or a.
Yep.
So they invest the money and they get that.
Yeah, I'm not running their business for them. Yeah, absolutely. So what we do is we do a photographic schedule at the beginning of each tenancy. So we document, and it's appended to the lease, and it's cross-referenced in the lease. So it's the lease refers to the photographic schedule, and the photographic schedule refers to the lease, and it shows the unit as we give it to them, and we expect it back in the same condition at the end of the lease. But yeah, if they want to start messing around with it and start drilling holes and doing anything
at the end, and do they pay a deposit, right?
Yeah, we normally ask for 6 weeks deposit.
Yeah.
So again, it's making it as sort of relatively low interest to low barriers.
Do you credit reference the company?
Pardon? Just say that again.
You credit reference, get personal guarantees.
Yeah. So if it's I subscribe to Experian Business just because of the valuations I do. So and I need that anyway. So I always Experian any limited company. But even if it is a limited company, we get personal guarantees anyway. So it's either signed as if it's not a limited company, it's just Dave Smith. Then Dave Smith will sign the lease. But if it's Dave Smith Limited, then Dave Smith has to sign personally as a guarantor.
And have you considered, because you've got one already, do you have a sort of a policy for when somebody says, look, I'm not making any money, I'm going out of business, I want to give it up early? Do you have some kind of policy?
Yeah, I'm always flexible. There's no point holding on to anyone till the bitter end. What I say to them is, look, we'll get the unit re-advertised. Basically, you pay the agency fees.
Yeah.
And give the unit back in the condition that we require it in, and providing we can back somebody, when we're not losing any rent. The alternative is and I made this offer to someone last week, a baker who wants a much bigger unit than we can offer in the Attercliffe property. I said, you buy yourself, because she's got about 12 or 13, I think it was 13 months until her next until the end of her lease. So I said, look, you can buy yourself out of the lease if you want. So if you pay us 6 months rent up front,
just do a deal, to buy yourself out.
So either we win or you win, or either that, or we just put the property on the market and we wait for someone to come along, and in these times it might be next week. It might be in 7 months' time, in which case you've lost a month's rent.
Fascinating.
What's your default rate kind of on average? Do you normally collect 100% of the rent, or
across a year it's about 95%? And you know, and anyone else, we either have work payment plans out, or we just CCJ them. You know, the nice thing is we can send the bailiff. Obviously, a little bit strange at the minute, but you can send the bailiffs in usually quite quickly with commercial property. So you just have to follow the CRA process, commercial rent arrears recovery. So I'm not a managing agent, so I can't remember the rules. I think it's either a week or 2 weeks notice you have to give, but you don't have to go to court. Previously, you just have to give them notice that some bailiffs are going to turn up, basically.
And your only communal area here is between 8, 12, 13 and 15, isn't it?
Just say that again, sorry.
I'm saying the only communal area is that little corridor between 8, 12, 13 and 15.
Just hang on, let me switch screens again, sorry.
I can see this your screen, maybe, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that's a fire corridor.
But it's also, yeah, it's also the only way they're going to access those units, isn't it? So
because there's
internal access.
There's the roller shutter on the front.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, right.
Yeah, so these units, all the thick red is either thick black is existing roller shutter, or the thick red is new roller shutters.
Right. So what's the blue?
They're new fire doors.
Right. Yeah.
So every unit's got to have its own fire door because a roller shutter is not deemed an appropriate egress in terms of fire for building regs.
Got it.
Because obviously, if a roller shutter's down and the electric pops, I don't know if you've ever tried to put a roller shutter up with a chain, but it's hard work.
Yeah.
And it's even harder work if you're in a wheelchair because you ain't reaching the chain, so it's going to get fairly toasty fairly quickly. So yeah, you've got to have an approved fire door.
Yeah. And do you have to have anything like a sprinkler system or anything like that? No.
No, you don't have to. It helps with your insurance, with your buildings insurance.
Yeah.
But no, there's definitely no requirement. If you have really like fireworks, for example, then yes, building regs do mandate that you have a sprinkler system. But quite frankly, if anyone ever approached me and said I want to rent, store fireworks, I'd have to say sorry. There's 0% chance I'd ever rent to you.
And is there a sort of responsibility you have to the other tenants to, prevent somebody from breaches of COSH or anything of that nature? No.
No, as long as anything, there's nothing dodgy happening in the communal areas, etc.
Yeah.
So like this can't remind me. You can all see my cursor, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all this is the car park area. So providing there's no tenants storing bits and bobs out here that would breach COSH or anything like that, then we'd have to obviously pull them up on it. But apart from if there's something's happening inside, and then at the end of the day, they have the right to quiet enjoyment.
Yeah.
So we can't just go poking our nose around.
How about bins? Do you have to provide commercial waste disposal, or do they pay for their own?
No, they pay for their own. We do provide it at the other site, but that's a point of practicality. It's a weird site. It's a listed building, and there's no easy access to large bins. So we have to manage what type of bins we have at that site, because you can get really huge bins that have specialist lorries where they come and sort of pick it up and poke it over the top, but those bin lorries won't fit on the other side. So yeah, we just have to manage it, and also it was a historic thing because when we bought it, the previous owners were providing commercial bins. So we decided to sort of shrug our shoulders and just accept that we're going to have to carry on paying for it. So that's about 120 quid a month, I think we pay. So it's not the cheapest. We've started trying to educate the tenants about recycling. A lot of them think that recycling sort of stops at home, whereas if you can get them to recycle the cardboard and the plastic, it becomes a damn sight cheaper. And there's no weight limits on recycling, whereas with mixed waste bins, you're paying for the lift, as it were, but you're also paying for the weight that's in the lift, so you're sort of paying twice. Whereas with the cardboard recycling, certainly, you can just sort of pile it up at the side, and the guys will happily chuck it in the truck. We can put the biggest bins we can on site, and they'll happily take it.
Well, we're all pretty silent because I think we're so impressed, to be honest, Ryan. That's fantastic. Is there any more questions then before we close it? Because we've been at it for 3 hours now, so I think that's an optimum time, I would say.
No, it's really interesting now. Opened my eyes to commercial.
Yeah, and a great mix of deals, wasn't it? So that's worked so well this evening. I'm very, very pleased, and it's been recorded, so I'll let you know once it's out on the YouTube channel. So if there's any things you want to come back and revisit, then you'll be able to at any time. And it's great to see some of you again that we haven't seen for a while. So next Monday, 7 o'clock, as every Monday at 7 o'clock, we do the same cafe, and look forward to seeing you then. And who knows, one day we might meet again in real life, But I was actually kind of half hoping for October for that to happen, but it's all gone silly again. So there you go. But I have provisionally announced to some others at the cafe, so I ought to let the cat out of the bag. So long as the conveyance of our house goes through, which might not happen, of course, but if it does go through, we're heading down for Portugal. And so it could be that by Christmas, I'll be doing these meetings from Portugal. And then if we do have some physical meetings, then we might have a sort of I don't know, 6-monthly conference in Portugal. I noticed that the Ryanair flights last week were €9. So that could be interesting. Yeah, more detail on that. And I don't want to preempt that too much, because until you've exchanged contracts, you have nothing but plans. Yeah. Good. So thanks a lot. Thanks for all the presentations to all the presenters, and we'll see you, or have the opportunity to see you on Monday evening.
Thanks for that.
That was great. Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.